Hey, this is a shout out to the whole.
The views and events expressed here are totally whacked and are not necessarily the views of anyone.
Choose your destiny.
Dime qué tú quieres, papi. ¿Quieres que lo mueva para ti? Mueve, mueve. ¿Te gusta cuando me muevo así? Así.
Thank you, God, for this day. We have lived everything in our life, our health, our family, the guidance you have given us, allow us guidance to the path of righteousness. Amen.
Really, I'ma get that bitch. Revenge is a dish best served cold. She took my son, now my soul is cold. He took my daddy, now my soul is old. Yeah. Woke up. Yeah, man.
That's hot shit right there, man.
So what we gonna do? We gonna dub?
King Chaka ENT. Y'all can check out the music on Spotify, Apple, and other services. Doing what we do 3 to 4 nights a week. King Chaka ENT.
I got this.
From the
She
back
starts
seat.
shooting.
That dude was like, ow.
What was that?
Outside the car,
That nigga
deputies'
got
body
popped.
cameras capturing the bullets flying through the air.
We got shots fired
couldn't
up
have been
here.
a straight
We need
shot. It had
backup
to be-
immediately. Start
Are you-
EMS. Start EMS.
What
We got
the
a civilian. We got a civilian hit.
The deputy.
Looks like we got us another hit.
Hey, how y'all doing out there? How y'all feel? Remember, an educated public cannot be controlled. Learn to be active. The views and events expressed here are totally whack and are not necessarily the views of anyone. So the name of the show is War with the World. I want to do a monologue, but I got the jitters right now, so I'm going to come back to the monologue. Let me see. We're probably going to talk about this. Hold on, let me go back. U.S. Supreme Court stops Biden from ending Title 42 expulsions in win for Texas red states. Yeah, we'll come back. This one says, Moorish Americans take over a rural gun range, sparking a strange showdown. I didn't even get to really go into that, but it's really interesting. So we'll find out together. Old picture of Tupac. Those letters on the cars. Yeah, I don't really know those. We're going to talk about that. Random story is mom possibly mowed down her husband. Mom possibly mowed down by her husband with their kids in the car. Yeah, I was reading that. Random story. A little bit about the image of a brown baby is something that you don't see in hospitals very much, and it's not in the literature that the doctors learn from very much. It's a real thing. I want to come back to that. We're talking about 1984. Yeah, healthcare. Oh, yeah, definitely want to talk about China. It's like starting January 5th, people flying from China will need a negative COVID-19 test to enter the U.S. It comes during a lack of adequate and transparent data from the country, CDC says. The mess that went down with Southwest Airlines over the holidays, touch on that. I don't remember what that was. Yeah, I think that's a random topic to talk about. I didn't even watch that one, so I don't know. Oh, yeah, those were clips from China again in their hospitals. Let me see what else I got. We should be able to get to all this today. How standardized tests were designed by racists and eugenicists. I want to talk about that. How austerity politics launched a one-sided class. Brianna Joy Gray on the Hill. And another Brianna Joy Gray is elites identity politics and attack on student loan debt. Because we talked about that last week, and I really like what she had to say about it, and maybe it'll help explain some of the stuff I'm trying to get across. She's much more articulate than I. Okay. U.S. Supreme Court stops Biden from ending Title 42 border expulsions and win for Texas Red State. This is the Houston Chronicle. It says the U.S. Supreme Court on Monday hit pause on Biden's administration's plans to lift the public health order that has been used to expel migrants millions of times at the urging of Texas and other Republican-led states that argued ending the COVID-19 restrictions would create chaos on the border. Chief Justice John Roberts temporarily blocked a lower court ruling that required the Biden administration to let the public health order known as Title 42 expire on Wednesday. The order came after GOP states filed an emergency appeal for the high court to step in and gives the administration and states more time to make their arguments to high court. The slowdown comes as the White House said Monday that it has sent a record number of agents to the border in preparation for a surge in migration when Title 42 ends. Republican Governor Abbott used a national television appearance over the weekend to warn of total chaos if the order is lifted, arguing the nation still doesn't know the health status of thousands of people trying to cross the border. Let's read some comments. First comment, it says, so the Supreme Court can clearly use laws that don't belong to the situation now. I thought America said COVID was a joke. Now it's a serious threat. Politicians will never, ever fix immigration because if they do, they will lose a vote argument. Like gun control, if they wanted it fixed, it would be fixed. What would they fight over and divide us with if they fix it? Supreme Court is a joke now. That comment, it hits home with me. Basically what I've been saying. Another comment, it says, I'm very pro-immigration, but honestly, if Kamala won't visit the border, but also wants to act like it's not a problem, then her and Washington should be the ones receiving them and showing Texas how much not a problem it is. The real problem with immigrating the right way is that same people with our healthcare and adoption. Wait. I'm sorry. The real problem with immigrating the right way is the same problem with our healthcare and adoption, the cost. If you want people to adopt kids, it shouldn't cost $200,000. If you want people to pay their medical bills, a specialist shouldn't cost $1,000 a minute to see. And if you want to fix immigration the right way, to immigrate should be priced for people desperate to make a better life for their kids and not priced so only cartel members can afford it. I was wondering where this person was going with this comment because when he started off, he totally went in a different direction than I thought it was going in. Another comment, it says, yet another stall tactic from U.S. Congress immigration reform. This is why the executive office can't get nothing done. COVID is being handled by our country's government governing body. Representative should focus on reading the legislation instead of trying to concede and yes against all. Well, in their defense, just the other day we showed Rand Paul showing that last bill, the budget bill, and it was like it needed a forklift to carry that thing. You needed a dolly for that thing. Let me read another comment. It says, I have to laugh at the hypocrisy of the Republican Party. First, you say COVID is no big deal. Then you say we need Title 42 to stop people from entering the country because of COVID. Yeah, that's hypocritical. It's funny how a lot of these comments seem to be coming from the left. I'm very surprised. This is under Houston Chronicle, and they are not really. Let me read a little bit more. It says, hypocrisy. Republicans suddenly care about COVID when it's useful to advance their fascist bigotry. Thank you, Supreme Court and Governor Abbott. Okay, finally someone from the right. I was wondering. This one says, send them back to their country. U.S. taxpayers didn't sign up for an immigration tax. Okay, those are more like the comments. Not that I condone that, what they're saying. I'm just saying I'm surprised I hadn't read any of those yet. Yeah, they just get silly after that. I think I have a tweet on this particular topic. Let me see. Oh, is this the one Biden? Okay, yeah, the Biden clip. Let me go to that right quick.
Board is not going to decide until June, apparently, and in the meantime, we have to enforce it. But I think we'll certainly do. Will you discuss running for re-election in St. Croix?
They were asking him about Title 42. You probably couldn't hear it. It says, Biden said ending Title 42 is overdue. Wasn't very good sounding clip. I thought I had a clip on Kamala Harris. Swore I did. Oh, I think it was unrelated Kamala Harris. I think it was the clip of like her and her husband. Where is it? I must have lost it. What it was her and her husband was up there like, what were they saying? Merry Christmas or something. Oh no, they were talking about Hanukkah? No, they were talking about anyways. I don't have the clip, so let's just play this.
You have to look at monopoly power. Here at Inequality Media, we bring you the stories and context that the corporate media are unwilling to cover. For instance, if you want to understand the real story behind skyrocketing prices, you have to look at monopoly power. When an industry consists of just a handful of massive corporations who can coordinate price hikes, well, guess what? Everyone gets shafted. And here's the bad news. The economy is at least 50% more concentrated now than it was in 2005. But here's the good news. More and more people, including at key enforcement agencies, like the Federal Trade Commission, are speaking out about the need for stronger anti-monopoly enforcement. And there's more bipartisan appetite for busting up big corporations with undue market power than ever before. With your help, our team will be working tirelessly to educate about this growing problem and generate public pressure so Congress will finally take action to address it. So please, consider donating to Inequality Media today. Rest assured, your contribution will be put to good use.
I didn't mean to play an ad for y'all. Let's get to the topic. The name of this show, War with the World. It's like, I don't know, I read somewhere where there was like an artist is, a true artist is at war, is constantly at war with the world. And I don't know, that quote just kind of like sunk in on my brain, and it stained. So I've thought about it a lot, and it's like I think about myself, and I think about how I deal with the world. Like, I totally feel like an outsider. I totally feel like I don't fit in. I totally feel like I can't relate. I totally feel lonely. Like, that should have been the title of the show. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow, but it was like men and loneliness, something like that. I can't remember exactly how I wanted to make that title, but it had to do with men being lonely. This is not to exclude women. It's just coming from a male perspective. Okay, so it's like the way the world is, and the way it's set up, and like the joke that Chris Rock said that men are only loved on the obligation of providing something. And it's not only that, there's a lot of, you can look at the statistics and see that it's a lot of like single men or whatever in the United States. They don't really have much of a family, really. You know what I'm saying? They come home to an empty house. It's just them. So that's the definition of lonely right there. Even though in public you have your work buddies or whatever, maybe weekly or bi-weekly you go, I don't know, to some kind of social gatherings, but for the most part, because you're coming home to an empty house, you live in a really solitary life. That's kind of just beside the point of what I wanted to get to, was the war with the world. Feeling, but there's a loneliness compartment to it. That's the reason why I said that part. But the way I feel like, I feel like I'm the extreme minority. I feel like it's very few others that I can really relate to. You know what I mean? And it's with everything. It's with the jokes. It's with movies, books. The TV shows, whatever it is, like the average person, I can't relate with them on those things, and even beyond that, I like to have conversations that have more meaning, or at least I feel like they have more meaning. It's something that can have an impact, because we're in interesting times. I mean, without a doubt, most people listening would agree with that. So like what we're doing, how we're spending our time, throughout the day is affecting this time that we all live in collectively, the present. So I prefer to, gear conversations onto more substantial topics, because we're so polarized, we're so left, we're so right, we're so Democrat, we're so Republican, we're so black, we're so white. You get what I'm saying? We're so straight, we're so gay. It's we need to have conversations. I think that's the most important and the most powerful tool that we can have to bridge these gaps, because the media is pushing the separation. I think both sides can agree with that. The algorithm is pushing separation. I was watching something and they were talking about the bots, and they were talking about the algorithm and how, if you wanted to have an AI to manipulate people, it would be really easy, because when people, are angry or whatever, when we're at our worst, it's the easiest thing to emulate because we're so simple. So, the algorithm can do this easily, and we just fall for the trap over and over and over again, stuck in our feedback loops, and it's repelled at the other side. You know what I'm saying? You're totally disgusted by the other side. So that's why, again, I feel like these conversations are really important. You know, and I feel like I'm at war with the world because I'm at war with both sides. You know, I want people to think more, you know, on their own, make conclusions on their own. There's a clip I want to play, and then it's the guy talking about history. Oh yeah, about the tests. And it's like you can feel like you don't agree with this guy or whatever. You know, you can feel like maybe he's coming up with his conclusions in a way that doesn't make sense to you. Well, then that's fine, totally fine. Go back and look at the history that he's talking about and dig through it yourself and come up with your own conclusions. You know, make sense of it on your own.
You know what? I realize that people are really so programmed to where, like, no matter how they see this information, they hear it another way. Like, they don't hear exactly what's being said. They hear, like, somehow it, like, okay, we listen to the exact same thing, and somehow they see, something totally different. So, I'm assuming that, I mean, I guess we both must be programmed, but I don't know. I mean, because for me, I mean, honestly, I don't really see it quite like the same for myself, because it's like, wait a minute, well, all right, let me tell you what I saw, because I know you got this clip or whatever, but this lady was so pissed off that P. Diddy had donated $10 million, or, well, I guess wanted to invest $10 million into Twitter. And the lady was so upset. I can't believe he did this. He's letting this racist, say, because, when he got Twitter, he was able to, a lot of people were saying all kind of different stuff. And like I said, I mean, freedom of speech, people say stupid stuff or whatever. Okay, that's cool. Now, does that necessarily mean that Elon Musk is racist because other people got on Twitter, they decided that this was their time to say racist stuff? Or is it even possible that because Elon had just got Twitter, that the very same people that people think they can trust was the very ones on there saying racist things, or had bots in there saying racist things because they wanted to make it look like he's not responsible, he's just allowing this, and he's doing this and he's doing that.
I think that latter part is probably not far from the truth.
Yeah, because I mean, it's just really like, because that's the thing, like, people are so controlled, and I made a comment to the lady. I was like, I don't think you really understand what's going on, blah blah blah. I believe that you mean well, but I don't think you really understand what's really happening. And that's what's happening with most people,
because they don't, because they can't see it. They don't think that maybe their the same campaign that they like to support and give money to is using money to, let's say pay bots to try to make Elon Musk look like he's racist or whatever. Like, they don't think that this kind of stuff is going on, like they can't imagine.
Yeah, everything that they see is not doctored or somehow created for you to see it the way that you're seeing it. Like, I mean, do you know how much money they spend in marketing?
Yeah, that's what they spend money on, and that's how and these guys are marketers, politicians. That's what they do. That's how they freaking get on. So, but what I wanted to say was I think we covered a bit of it about how, like, you had like a politician would fund his opponent. He would pick the one out of the group that he thought was the weakest, and he would support his thing so that his ads would go to the top, and they would get a lot of ads for that guy, and they're like picking who they want to play, go against, so that they could win. You know what I mean? The weakest one, the one that they think has the least chance, they would pay
Put
for his
all
ads.
kind of money. Yeah, they put all kind of money behind him to get him boosted up, but still knowing that he won't have as much support as him.
But
Or
that has backfired quite a few times. I don't know if I covered it in the show, because there's clips of this, and people are putting this together. They have evidence of this. It has backfired a couple of times, so they don't really know what's going to happen, really, but it just shows how they are and what's really going on, and the shadiness, and the part where you were saying how people don't understand. That's one of the things that people would have a hard time wrapping their brain around. Why would I fund my opponent's campaign?
they don't get it. I mean that, and see, and that's the whole thing. Like controlling the narrative, or even because see, I mean, and they have to make it seem like it's close. Like it was like, oh, it's such a close race, and this, that, and the third. But it's a mind game, so that they feel like, okay, it's and for on both sides that it's like, wow, like dang, like the people who voted for this one guy that won, he's like, wow, like after everything we've done, we still only won by this much, and then the people who voted for the guy who lost is just like, all right, well, we were almost there. Oh, next time we can do this. It's so many mind games that they play, and they don't realize like marketing is psychology. Like I studied some marketing in my early years. I actually worked in a marketing job, and the psychology like that they teach you and what triggers it gives. It's like, bro, like they screw with people's minds for real.
Yeah, I was gonna say something and I lost it. Freaking yeah. So that's what I was gonna say. I have to say this disclaimer, because in the report that I saw, now both sides do this, but most of this was coming from the Democrats in the instances that they had examples of. Both sides do it, but most of the ones that were doing it in this example were on the Democratic side. They were doing it.
Well, see, and honestly, bro, like the Republicans, they feel like there's certain things that work for them for so long, and honesty is the best policy, and really it should be. But when you got somebody who's they've gotten paid for so many years and by so many people, and they're part of these different groups that's got an agenda that if they don't meet their expectations, if they don't do what what they've been told to do, like they could be in trouble, or like they might get off. It's a bunch of like I don't think they realize how like almost like pretty much a mafia politics has gotten. God bless you. Like the politics has gotten to be like truly mafioso level. You know what I'm saying? Like people end up dead for certain, and then a lot of them I think might probably even work together, because like I said, some of these opponents that come up on the Republican side or the Democrat side, then they're just filling a space when they know who's supposed to. Because I saw something where I was watching like they always have like these people be from the same group, from the like they both represent like this, what was it, the Council for Foreign Affairs or something like that, and they it's not a real group, like it's not like a real political group, or like a group that's for the United States. This is a private group, but it was meant to look like a something that is like an official state or federal group or whatever. And but in that group, there was always two candidates that came out that pretty much end up going up against each other. So there was always somebody that won that was in the group, that was out of that group. So they they play so many games, man. It's
mind fucking everybody. Let me read this headline right here. It says, this is Washington Post. Moorish Americans take over a rural gun range, sparking a strange showdown. So it says, Washington Post, the complaints about the property on Fire Tower Road were urgent, but not too far out of the ordinary in this rural stretch of southern Maryland. Ear-splitting gunfire, endangered cows, a stray bullet that pierced a neighbor's equipment shed. But that was before the would-be heirs to the mythical North African Empire moved in, claiming their dominion extends not only over the lost island of Atlantis, but also over 5 acres in Charles County. The episode began when gun enthusiasts started getting together on Sundays for target practice at the wooded property of 64-year-old Byron Bell. As the gatherings grew bigger, along with the caliber of weapons and the number of rounds destroyed, they drew ire of neighbors, even in this sparsely populated and gun-friendly area. Yet it was after county officials took action, deeming the site an unlawful firing range and filing an injunction to stop it from operating in September, that events took several unexpected turns. That was when a group calling itself Moorish Americans, an offshoot of the extremist sovereign citizen movement, whose members believe they are immune from dealings with U.S. legal and financial systems, essentially took over the range, declaring it protected under the consular jurisdiction of Morocco. Interesting, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard of stuff like this before. I mean, hey, look, if they can get away with it, that's on them. That's nothing that me or our government would do, because I mean, we have some Moors, and we're Aboriginals and Moors, but we have a full functioning government, indigenous government. So, trying to say anything about Morocco is kind of, I don't know, I think it kind of nulls most of the stuff that comes with it. It's like, okay, how are you using laws from there? I don't know. Look, I mean, I really don't look. I rather not. I don't want to talk down on those people. I don't really understand it. And if it works for them, hey, more power to them brothers. Because I know that for the most part they have a good, like their, mindset is in a positive, place. So. But I think there is still some.
Yeah, it sounded like they stirred up the white folks, and they was like, "Man, we gotta bust this up."
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, they claim. I mean, they must have some dominion over something, because they took it over. Nobody could do anything about them being there.
So that makes you wonder about whatever the laws are or whatever.
Yeah.
Let me read some comments. The first comment says, for clarity, the Moorish Science Temple of America was founded by Timothy Drew, aka Noble Drew Ali, in the early 20th century. He never taught the sovereign citizen stuff, and it's not clear how that entered into the faith. This is the fringe of the fringe here. And before anyone asks, no, I am not a member of the MSTA and do not subscribe to their beliefs.
Yeah, I know a bunch of Moors that's that way. They don't really go with the Moor Science Temple. They're like, look, I'm not a Moor Science Temple Moor. I'm just a Moor. I'm a Moorish American at that, and then whatever else. So I mean, like I said, I can't talk down on them. They're doing their thing,
Okay. Let me read another comment. It says, so for years, this area was used as a firing range, Second Amendment. Now, when a brown minority is using the area, the community has an issue. Apparently, these moors are not wide enough for the Second Amendment. That's what this story screams to me. That's what this story
Well,
screams to me.
well, I think it's a fear thing, because it's like, oh, wait a minute, is this the time where they're gonna come back and they're gonna do to us what we did to them, you know? But I mean, the original white people were black. You know what I'm saying? Like, the people that you are saying you are comes from, this group of people. I mean, the Europeans, a lot of the Europeans that came, well, they say North African, because I mean, if you really look into the Constitution, like what a white person is, and that can be still, is really those people, the Berbers, like the people that come from North Africa, South Europe, and all that. Like, I mean, a bunch of those people, and in the 1700s, most of those people were melanated people.
Let me read some more comments. This one says, I'm guessing they don't know Morocco is a monarchy. He he he. Let me read another one. It says, everyone wants freedom until someone practices that freedom in a way they don't appreciate.
Ain't that something?
Dun, dun, dun. Let me read this one. It says, Jesus Christ, we really are living in the dumbest timeline.
The dumbest?
Yeah.
Ain't that something? Hey, look, you know what? Everybody's got their opinion on it, and like I said, I mean, look, I mean, ultimately, regardless if they were identified as African American or anything else, is black men, quote unquote, that is practicing how to protect themselves, and that's abnormal, because they're used to us accepting the bullshit that they dish out. And
I want to talk about China, but I know we're gonna end up on that for a long time, so I'm gonna come back. Let's do the standardized test one. Did you watch that video? The standardized test one. It was.
I know I saw at least 2 of those videos you sent.
Yeah, it was 3. But Brianna Joy Gray was on 2 of them, and then it was one that was about the testing from Democracy Now! That's the one I'm gonna play right now. Because this will be interesting.
Than whites and Asians.
This should get us talking on this topic, because I bring this up, and then people think I'm crazy. But then, like I said earlier in the show, like, if you don't agree with this guy, that's fine. Just go look at the history and come up with what you think it is.
Currently, in most intelligence tests, Latinos and Black people receive lower scores than whites and Asians. The question is what is the problem? Is there a problem with the test takers or the test? And for 100 years, Americans have made the case that Black people, Latino people are not achieving intellectually as much as other people, as much as white people. And I would argue, no, the problem isn't with these test takers. The problem is with the tests themselves. These are tests that were created by eugenicists. When you look at the person who created the SAT test, when you look at the person who first popularized the IQ test in the United States, these were avowed eugenicists.
Well, go into that more fully. We've got the hour here, and this is an astounding history you write about.
Well, I mean, Lewis Terman, for instance, who wrote a century ago this book in which he sort of sought to promote this new IQ test that he had brought over from Europe. In that book, he talked about that these tests will prove that Black people are intellectually inferior. I mean, this was the hypothesis that he put forth in a book that promoted the original IQ test a century ago. And Carl Brigham, who essentially established the SAT test a decade later in the 20s was a eugenicist from Princeton. I mean, these are eugenicists who created these tests not just to prove that Latinos and Black people were inferior to white people, but also to prove that women were genetically intellectually inferior to men, that poor people were genetically intellectually inferior to wealthy people, that Southerners, I mean, everyone, that non-Anglo-Saxons were intellectually inferior to Anglo-Saxons. And so this test became the evidence that they had been looking for, really for hundreds of years, to prove that people of color and poor people and women were intellectually inferior.
So explain what the College Board has recently announced, that they are adding an environmental context dashboard for all students taking the SATs. What does this mean?
I'm trying to figure that out too. One thing I think the College Board, ETS, some of these other institutions that have been under fire by not only anti-racists, but even parents who don't want their children being in these high stakes testing environments. And I think they're figuring out new ways to essentially maintain the existence of these tests. And certainly this is a way to respond to those who are fundamentally pointing to the environment as the problem and not necessarily the test takers.
Well, here in New York City, Mayor de Blasio has been attempting to eliminate the standardized tests for the most elite high schools in the city, because actually the number of African Americans and Latinos admitted into this highly specialized high school has been dropping, hasn't been increasing even as the population has been, but he's met enormous resistance at the state level and he has not been able to get that through. What your sense of this battle that's been going on, not only in New York City, but across the country over tests?
Well, I've been following that. And what I've specifically been following is those parents who come to town halls and argue for the maintenance of tests. Many of these parents, though certainly not all, have said things like, my kids are scoring on the test because they work hard. Those other Black and Latinx kids, obviously the implication is they're not working hard. What they're not talking about, though, is that the test prep companies, the test prep tutors, the test prep industry is concentrated in New York City in white and Asian neighborhoods. So it makes sense that those who get the best test prep and who have the most access to resources to pay for test prep are going to do the best on these tests.
And very interesting, and probably a corollary of all that, is that the New York schools, the public schools, are the most segregated in the country.
In the country.
We're not talking about the South here. We're talking about New York.
And I think that's an incredibly important point. Because even when we talk about anti-racism, when most people think of who needs to be an anti-racist, they think of Southerners, they think of people who voted for Trump. They don't think of people who are advocating for the maintenance of these tests, which are denying access to some of the best schools in New York City to Black and Latino kids.
Yeah, man. So it's real interesting. This goes with what we were saying earlier about the switcheroo and the mind fucks, being that New York is a liberal haven, Democratic haven, and they got the most segregated school districts in the country.
Yeah, Chicago, New York,
and the South is supposed to be known for that.
Yeah,
and Republican states.
Well, I mean, I think that because I mean, if we really look at it, I mean, I'm sure we can see that there is somewhat of a I mean, I think they're complicit on both sides. I mean, I think when we try to alienate one racist from another, we don't gather the whole pile. But we can see that there is an issue there, and I mean, there's something that definitely needs to be addressed because, and is there a fair way to do it? Because I mean, if we're allowing, one group of people to create the test, most cases is you need to have more cultures involved with creating the test so that it can be fair. Because if you have one, the main culture that's creating the test it's gonna line up easier with them than it will with anybody else, because there's certain things that is gonna happen in their culture that we may never see in ours or in another. So
Well, I don't like the tests at all, at all, at all. And
well,
I think they're hurting everyone, period. Everyone who has to
no,
take the test. These
no.
kids are stressing the hell out, and they already stressing these kids out in elementary and freaking middle school, starting to get them ready to take these tests. And they stress these kids out, and then the teachers are teaching to the test the whole year because all of the funding. This is what I wanted to say though, as far as the racist part of it, it has evolved into just an economic thing. I think at this point, the tests are for the corporations to make money. You know what I'm saying? It's another money chain. It's another one of those government contracts. You know what I'm saying? To my buddy, you know, you get to get this money all the time. It's real steady money.
Hmm.
And so, you know, the tests, the kids aren't having time to actually learn stuff because they're worried about taking these tests. So they're just test prepping. And when you test prepping, you're not really learning the material. You're learning how to take the test, how to
Yes,
pass the test.
you're learning the psychology of how the test is created so that you know how to think when taking the test.
And then with a lot of the standardized tests, you can go look at the older tests, and a lot of it's not going to be the exact same question, but the questions are going to be very, very similar.
So,
So
yeah.
you go back and you look at those, and you're going to have the right answer, and you try to come up with the logic that they came up with, and then
Well,
boom, that's going to help you a lot in taking the test.
well, my thing is, because I mean, I think that in these different communities, if the test prep was actually offered more, now would the majority be able to afford it? Maybe not. I'm not sure how that would work, but I think that those kids would pass more if they just knew how this test was created, how to perceive this test before they're taking it.
And I can't disagree with you as far as that most likely will be
And,
true, but I just don't feel like the test prep is the answer because the problem is the test itself, and it's not
yes.
just hurting the Black and Latinos. It's hurting everybody.
Well,
It really is.
I don't
It's
know if it's hurting
discriminate.
everybody.
It is. I was watching some stuff because how
Because they
like
think that. Well, I'm sorry. I apologize, but is it because do you think it's because that these kids in their mind feel more superior because they are able to pass the test
well
and
that
they're
that's part of the mind fuck, but that's not the point I'm on. I'm on.
okay.
I was watching some stuff, and it was like these kids in Korea. I think they were in Korea, and some kids in China, and
Uh-huh.
how because they have to take these tests over there too, and they have to pass these tests, and how they be stressing about them, and like I don't know, not eating, you know, just constantly studying. You know what I'm saying for this test, and it stresses them out. I saw a story just recently. Some college kid committed suicide. I can't remember what school it was.
So this is on the
And
college level too?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'm thinking the standardized test is like
I'm I'm I'm
elementary,
I'm
junior
looking at
high.
it overall because those standardized tests are getting you ready for the ones that you take in college too. It's all together in my mind. I don't
Well,
I don't separate it.
well, with the because see, we've talked about this many times. Is that um, everything is built on trying to meet these European standards, and the books are written, or at least that's used, are written by white men. um there's no room for, like, there's not any real balance where this book that's written by this Latino man, or a Latino woman, a black man, a black woman. These textbooks are all, you know, conceived by a white male, and that's the ideology that everybody has to grow into. Where if we look at the world, they are the minority. You know what I'm saying? Now, if we're talking about just here in this country, yeah, they tend to be more look like anyway to be a majority, but either way, we got to figure out something to give more balance. But you think that there shouldn't be a test at all?
No, not those kinds of tests. Not those ABC fucking 1, 2, 3. No, there should be other ways you can demonstrate your knowledge, and you know, in some of the other countries they don't even have the freaking multiple choice. You have to fill in the blank. Like, so, like, you really, I always hate filling the blank tests. Those, they stress me out more than anything, because you really have to know the damn answer. You really have to know. So, but back to your point, though, you know, I've had arguments with my instructors on this thing, because, you know, the student, you know, and the stuff I do is a lot of reading books, and we have to write research papers, and we have to cite our sources. And, you know, that's one of the things, you know, it has to be a approved source, and, you know, it has to be relevant to your topic. And then it just so happens that 9 out of 10 times it turns out to be, you know, a white man. Let me read the caption. It says, Ibram X. Kendi, professor and author of 2 books confronting racism in the United States, joins us to discuss his new book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. He talks about the racist underpinnings of standardized tests and their development as tools for prominent eugenics to prove the intellectual inferiority of poor, women, and particularly descendants of Africans. The tests, he argues, blatantly discriminate against people of color under a veneer of scientific objectivity. He says these tests became the evidence they have been looking for, really for hundreds of years, to prove that people of color and poor people and women are intellectually inferior. And, you know, people always talking about, like, what did you get on the IQ test? What was your, you know, or what was your SAT score?
Yeah, I don't think I well, I didn't do the SAT. What's the other one?
Don't get me the line. Damn, the SAT is what I took. It's nothing.
ACT.
ACT, yeah, that's the one I took, and I did horrible.
Yeah, remember, I worked at a college bookstore for 10 years. I know a little bit about the game.
Yeah. And them making money. I'm sure you know that it's all about the money with these. Like, they force the kids. I'm in college right now, and the books sometimes be not used. And it's like every class has to.
Dude, HCC bought a $40 million skyscraper with bond money, government money, and then paid the sucker off and rented parts of it out within 6 years.
Probably on all of those book fees.
That's HCC.
And they small-timey related to the freaking universities. And each class, they have to give you a book to buy. Like, you know, they have to have a book. Like, the curriculum has to come with a book that you have to purchase for every class.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, when I went to Southeastern Louisiana University, there was at least 3 teachers, 3 professors that we used the book that they wrote.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah,
that happens.
Well, and there's also special versions of the book where they change chapters around or remove parts or add parts to chapters, which are like HCC edition.
And that's what they do with everything, especially
or
the
even
history.
HCC West Side, HCC Central, and HCC East Side versions.
The history books, the that stuff, and that stuff don't really
Oh,
change,
hey,
and they just
I will
rearrange
give
it.
you. Got to give the teachers at HCC props because one year a history book came in and had so many inaccuracies with it, the entire department refused to use it. They just said, no, we will not use this book. The school ordered it for them anyway, and no one bought it. The kids were coming in, the teachers came in, they didn't talk to at the bookstore there's three people at my particular location. You got the manager, the assistant manager, and the long-haired dude that knows everything that's going on. I was that guy.
And you're talking about in like the library?
No, in the bookstore.
In the bookstore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's always that one hippie guy with the ponytail that
How long was your
don't know. Do what?
How long was your hair?
It ranged from the middle of my back to the top of my belt.
Because I know that guy, but it's kind of I'm used to the short hair doc. I don't, you know what I'm saying?
That's just it. You see this, and everyone responds to this. This is not me. This is not the me that I identify as. Have you seen my Facebook page?
No.
Okay, I've got it. I know what I can do.
Let me read some comments underneath this. It says, if you've ever taken an IQ test, it literally just tests basic problem solving and critical thinking on a very foundational level. It's impossible to be biased. I would say that you're ignorant, buddy.
But I would have to ask, what is your ethnicity?
Let me read some more. It says, can someone explain how the tests discriminate against the test taker if everyone is taking the same test? Yeah.
See, and that's the thing. Like, smart people can be so, I don't want to say dumb, but ignorant at times. Like they of course know what they've seen, but just to imagine what somebody else could be going through because of
everybody's taking the same test, so I don't get it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the same test that was, because it's
catered to your ass.
It's psychology, you know what I'm saying? Like everything, like they don't realize how much that goes into the planning, like how they, a lot of these things are created, like even curriculums, like just the way they're chosen, what's necessary to be able to get through this, to be able to say that you're good enough to pass this class. Like,
is that it?
I don't think they get it.
Let me read some more comments. It seems like all of these comments are not feeling this guy. Let me read another one. It says, this man squandered an opportunity to specifically state what about the standardized test was racist. It's amazing how over the last 5 years, terms like racist and white supremacists have lost all meaning. Let me read another one. It says, this guy's existence proves they are accurate. I don't really know what he means by that one. Let me read another one. Equality is like unicorns. It's cute to believe in when you're a 4-year-old, but it's cringy as fuck to believe in when you're a grown-up. That's an interesting comment. Another one. I was agnostic on the issue of IQ testing, but after listening to the bloke speak, I think the tests are on point. Okay, he was trying to be clever. It didn't come off nearly as clever as you thought, buddy. Another one. It says, this guy scored 85 on an IQ test. And laughing, crying emoji. Another comment, it says, it must be hard to be so insecure. The test just sits there. The person takes it and shows what they can do. I really think that these people have a hard time understanding how Anyways, let me read another comment. I got by far the highest SAT score in my district as a Mexican. Both parents are high school dropouts. What separated me from the other Mexicans is how I treated school. They have a significant higher ditch rate compared to whites. In my classes, I see them on their phones and talking while eating hot Cheetos. They look down on the top students for not devoting their life to hot chips, Fortnite, and Instagram. Then they cry that standardized tests are racist if they're not the ones holding themselves back.
Wow. That's one of those guys that's we know one. Well, I don't know somebody like that personally, but just they think that they're the special one in their group. Well, I'm Latino, but I worked hard and I got the best grades of all the rest of the Latinos. I mean, I still only scored a 50, but I did better than the rest of those mutts.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, how did you do compared to everybody else?
I mean, a couple more comments and then I'm gonna move on because this is a sensitive ass topic. Another comment, it says, translation: I'm too stupid to pass the test, so I'm going to claim the test is racist.
Yeah, that's definitely a hateful racist comment right there. No, I mean, but some people really are that ignorant and they cannot really fathom that the world that they've been living in has been pushed up and amped up just for them. Like, they've been, what's the word? Provisions that were considered or pushed higher that makes it easier for you, and they think that they've done so well because, oh well, I made a good grade, why couldn't you? But bro, like, this thing was
people have a lot of faith in these IQ tests. They bring that shit up all the time.
Well, see, that's the thing. Like, when they do well, like there's no way there's anything wrong with it, because it has to be that it was, what I'm saying, like, if they think of it any other way, it discredits their good grades, especially when you're that white male that thinks that, okay, yes, I am above you. But like,
let me read a couple more. It says, this comment, it says, we need a multi-pronged approach to this, since most standardized tests are language tests fundamentally. Sliding scale, high quality preschool for every child 2 to 5 years to close early linguistic development gaps. And takes another look at prompts on the IQ and linguistic tests. We're using that, ask kids to name what the arrow is pointing to. When the arrow is pointing to a stirrup on a saddle, but the kid has never gotten to see a horse in person, how is it development appropriate to expect them to respond stirrup? Shout out to my SLPs and school psychs in the struggle. Or somebody understands.
Because for somebody to be,
okay,
it's the foot thing.
No, that's the thing right there. It's the problem is cultural in a manner of country kids, city kids. They're not going to have had the same experiences, and too much of this test requires experience instead of simple knowledge.
Yeah.
I mean, I could tell you everything about a horse and gear before I'd ever actually ridden one or anything like that, because I was interested in it. I saw pictures. I read the encyclopedia one year because I was hiding in a tree, and I looked at it, and same thing, armor, everything I was interested in, I remembered because I read it. I didn't have to experience it, but at the same time, I do really good on those tests, even if I've not been exposed to the information on them.
Yeah, I'm good at taking tests. So, that's what it is. I think about the psychology of the test, and I think about my question is, what are they looking for? Because I don't go by what's right.
Like that guy was leading to. It's reading comprehension.
Yeah, so and I read a lot, so I'm really good at that. And it's kind of like the part where, like me being in anthropology, I have advantages in that because I did a lot of that studying already on my own. So when I get into this class, I'm already familiar with the material.
Say, I took a little Latin back in high school, so that helps me get science and things like that, because if I don't know what I'm reading, I know how to break the word down to its Latin roots.
So those are the biases that you can't really put your finger on. So how would you actually make these tests fair? That would be a really difficult job. It would be tough.
Well, see, that's another problem. Black culture, the language is pulling away from standard American English.
That's what I was about to mention, because when they said
just the same way standard American English is pulled away from European English, and Australian English has pulled away from, we are English, and Black Americans, they speak English, but their English, they have a different dialect.
And all the
just
questions,
like we do here in the South, just like in the North.
And all the questions are going to be the, absolute proper English for the culture or whatever. And so then, like, that's the Black and Latino kids, the language is a big part of where the problem is, because the way their brain works is different related because of the language.
Well, see, they've got to stop. They have to go stop. They read the English word. They've got to stop, translate it to Spanish, think about what they're thinking about, translate that thought back into English. So there's 2-3 steps right there where a misinterpretation or where the data could go wrong.
Because the order of the words and all of that stuff, really has a lot to do with what it means overall. And then you start flipping the words around in different order.
Oh, they're not even trying to teach me order at work. They're just saying, hey, let's get the words together in the right sentence.
Telling you, because I've been studying Spanish, and once you start flipping the order of the stuff, oh Lord, I'm like, God, keep it in the regular standard order for me, please. Don't do that complex commas and semicolons and shit. I'm lost.
They're real happy that I have some familiarity with accents and voices and stuff, because it's allowing me to do the rolls and the trills and the enunciations properly, where a lot of time that's the hardest thing on teaching a white person or any person, actually, when you're learning a new language, is those subtle little, anchovies and, talking about the R's and the L's and the stuff like that.
I'm going to read a couple more comments so we can move on to China. This one, it says, I've taken the IQ test. It looks pretty unbiased to me. Another comment, it says, a few random observations. He made no correlation between the eugenics of the past and why Black people don't test well today, generally speaking. He made no explanation as to why Asians, who the eugenics weren't fans of, do well on the test. It would help if he understood and was able to explain the elasticity of the brain and how IQ levels can rise or fall across groups and generations based on environment, exposure, and effort. If the test scores went up based on actual prep, they must be objective and not rigged to get the Black man. Why not use all of the effort complaining to get the Black community to work on leveling up whatever means possible? His fingernails are really long. That last one was weird. I think he fought against his own argument on the part where he says exposure based on environment, exposure, and effort, because that's part of what we're talking about here.
How does somebody just gets that like they're, somebody who lives, let's say, in the hood, all of a sudden they just get the exposure to the country club and somebody's ranch or farm, and you know they all of a sudden they just can know all these things, these all these lived experiences, you know, in order to take a test. Like there has to be a better way for them to, you know, what kind of things that they can use that's more universal for a test than, you know, specific things that might only lean toward. Because I mean, for me, I mean, I grew up on a farm. I wasn't really a horse rider. I could shit. I could name everything that they had on the horse. Uh, the you know, the cows. I mean, I grew up on a farm, so that's gonna be easy for me. But a lot of people who grew up in the neighborhood and going to the same school as me, most of them didn't. So I mean, most people would still, even if there's some others that did. So it's just not fair to put, you know, those types of questions in a test. Can't generalize something specific.
2 more comments. This one, it says, it's one thing to not have access. It's another thing to simply not meet the standards or organization has set. The topics on the test aren't things that only white people can learn. The knowledge on the test isn't only relevant to white people. I actually think there are better ways of evaluating students than testing, but testing does serve a purpose. One more, it says, though I understand the issue of who has access to better prep and tutors, etc., I still think we need to touch and agree that we have a lot of issues in our own communities. I know because I grew up in it, poor and black. We don't value education like we should, and we often have such a victim mentality that it discourages our youth from even wanting to push to excel. Yes, there are issues outside of our control that are being addressed, but we too often ignore the issues that we can control. Everything is not always as simple. Everything is not always a system issue.
No, it is. It is a system issue, because one of the reasons why some of these students are not truly connecting is because they don't see the relatability. They're getting frustrated because they don't see where they fit in there, and they feel like, damn, I'm just dumb because I don't get this shit. So people don't tend to love things that they don't, you know, have a cohesion with. Like, you know, like because these things are systematically built against them, it's not set for them to automatically just say, you know what, I love school. I just wish, like, they don't see the problem. All they can do mostly is blame themselves. They feel like they're stupid. And it's just like, nah, yeah, forget school. I don't, you know, yeah, I don't really like it. That's what tends to happen more so. And I know I felt that way for a long time until I got older, and then I realized and I saw different things. Like, I love learning. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that could have been pushed and promoted more at a younger age if the balance was there. I had a teacher that said that I was retarded in 2nd grade. And then, you know, because, you know, they went through the whole, some test, I don't know what test it was, but of course, I mean, I passed it with, you know, with flying colors. And then that, you know, they had to question her, like, okay, what's, you know, something wrong with you? But that's just the way it was. I mean, they didn't pay a whole lot of attention to me. If I had questions, it's kind of like, I'll get to you. What you say, Ashley? You know, like a lot of the teachers, and then that's the other thing I believe, that because, you know, I think about the majority of teachers are usually white females. Nothing against the white female teacher, but they're not as relatable to other groups as they might be to someone who that might identify, they might closely identify with more. And I think that's just a cultural thing. Like I think it's somewhat normal that happens. I mean, of course, you shouldn't be. You got to make sure you're not that way. But if there's somebody that's you can understand and relate with more, you're probably gonna do so. You know what I'm saying? And that would work the same way for blacks and Latinos. If there's more black, because I mean, I would love to see more black men as teachers. Like, and when I was in elementary school, there was one. When I was in junior high, there might have been two.
Yeah.
And, you know what I'm saying?
Part of that, I would have to say, I mean, that that's definitely a problem, and they talk about it all the time. But part of that I would have to say is like pay and like education. What I'm saying is, if you want talent, then you got to pay for it. You know what I mean? If a black guy can't support his family on a teacher salary, then he just can't do. He just can't. No matter how bad he wants to do it, can't.
Yes, exactly. Because that's one thing in our society, that if you can't provide for your family, you ain't shit. You ain't nothing. And as much value as a man can give on any race is invaluable. Like, I mean, that's something you can't really put a price on it, because a male teacher is going to be very firm. It's going to be fair. And I hate to say it like that, but because I mean, I guess there are women teachers that's going to be fair, but in most cases they're just going to, they have expectations for the students, all of them. And
it's just that all the schools will benefit from a more balanced representation, of society.
Yeah.
In the classroom.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If they're making $40,000 a year, I mean,
how can you expect them to?
Yeah.
Let me move on right here. It says starting January 5th, people flying from China will need a negative COVID-19 test to enter the U.S. It comes during a lack of adequate and transparent data from the country, CDC says. This is interesting, mad interesting to me. Do I have the article?
But the mass migration.
No, we talked about that, but it's
I figured this was like another branch of that same situation, but
yeah, well, no, because I'm talking about how one of the things wanted to get to related to this is how we talk about TikTok and they're banning TikTok, so now they're stopping Chinese people from coming over without negative COVID tests into multiple countries. So, but it is a mess with the COVID. So they got a good excuse, but I was thinking about the more I think about how both sides are agreeing with this TikTok thing, I'm starting to think more and more that it's political, and protecting the corporations. I was saying that before, but
that's the main thing, because it's not being banned on the personal level, it's being banned on the government level. Like, you cannot use a government phone and do TikTok, whether you're uploading or interacting. You just can't do it on a government phone. But because I guess they're saying issues with hacking and this and that and the third. But I mean, if it's corrupting your child, I don't care. Like that's kind of more like they don't really care about that part. They're more so concerned about, I guess, espionage or some,
Let me read this. New York Times, it says, on the front lines of China's COVID crisis, as COVID cases rise in China after the government's abrupt reversal of zero COVID policies, Hospitals are being overwhelmed with patients. Healthcare workers are overworked, facing shortages of medical equipment and medications, and battling rampant infections within their own ranks. The New York Times examines videos that captured the growing crisis. So there's a video playing. I don't know if I can play this though. Let's see. Hospitals in China are straining on the wave of COVID patients as the government. I read that already.
都是接着，这有的得在这里，在楼道里得住好几天。
It said this is the emergency room. Some of these people could have been out here. This is the hallway, he said. Some of these people could have been out here for days.
人呢？
What did I see on this? Because I don't think I have this. China, what was it? The passports or whatever. Like, give me a second, y'all. I mentioned it, so I gotta find something that. There was a case that some people came from China, and half of them had COVID, and they came off of a plane. Like half the people that got off the plane had COVID.
Here in the U.S.?
I don't think it was the U.S. They were getting off somewhere else. I don't want to say where it was because I don't remember, and I don't want to say it wrong. I'm really kind of looking for. I don't even know what to type in.
So that, I mean, they're letting anybody come into the hospital. Because all right, you got a mask on, but there's just people because I mean, I know here in the U.S. they wouldn't even let, like, if you were a family member of somebody who had COVID, you dropped them off and you got to go.
Yeah. I don't know all that. I can't say.
Because I mean, I hate to be like this, but sometimes I feel like even this could be doctored up. This could be something to present a fear campaign to, get people riled up and,
Okay, I found something. Bloomberg News. Let's see. Is this going to be good enough? It says U.S. Requires negative COVID tests for people leaving China to enter the U.S.
U.S. officials are becoming.
What about
at the level of COVID infections in China, and also what they say is the lack of transparency regarding their data coming out. So what they're actually really worried about is the possibility that new variants are being created in China because of the level of infections and the possibility that variant will be spread overseas, including to the U.S. So that's why they're imposing this testing requirement for travelers from China.
Hey, Jordan, I got to say the discussion we've all been having is that this doesn't necessarily preclude COVID from once again coming back to the United States via Chinese travelers. So having said that, is there also another step that ultimately could come out of the U.S. that's even tougher on Chinese travelers into the United States?
Right now, they're not considering anything like a travel ban, although officials are keeping a close eye on the situation. They're expanding a surveillance program for travelers at 2 airports on the West Coast to try and keep an eye on those possible variants. But right now, they're not really considering anything higher than a testing requirement.
Hey, Jordan, how much of this is about not trusting the data from the Chinese government about who's testing positive and when they're testing positive?
I would say that's the primary concern of U.S. officials. I was talking to some of them yesterday, and what they said is that they weren't necessarily concerned that, by itself, that like China was lifting the COVID zero policies. It was that they were doing it at a time when infections were spiraling out of control, and that there weren't reliable data being sent to the rest of the world about who was testing positive, when they were testing positive, and with what variant.
Okay, comments. What do y'all think? I think that this is coordinated more than it looks. What I mean is, like, the polar on the global stage, it's you got these poles of Russia, China, Iran, or the BRICS, if you will, and then you got the U.S. and I'm and the NATO countries, the West, if you will. And I just think that they're saying that these people from China can't come without negative COVID tests. It sounds really fair. It really does on its face. It sounds fair. It sounds fair. It really does when you have these outbreaks or whatever. And
I don't think it sounds fair when it comes from, they got people coming in the country from South America, and, they could be ill. Like, we never know. Like, some of these people could have been in China. Some of them could have, coming from China into South America, and, like
southern border.
I'm gonna get into that, the Title 42 thing, because I have something on that.
There's like
because
50,000 people over the Christmas week that they claim was, like, just in that week, 50,000 people that's crossed the border.
Well,
like they said a state of emergency for Texas because El Paso has been overrun by immigrants.
Yeah, so the Title 42 Doc is alluding to, and the Supreme Court sided with Texas and said that it's too soon to end the Title 42. I was playing a little bit of that at the beginning of the show before y'all got on. Damn, it makes me want to go in that direction because I did want to talk about that. Let me just read this caption here. It says, U.S. to require negative COVID tests from China travelers. The U.S. will require airline passengers coming from China to show negative COVID-19 tests as global concerns ratchet higher over the virus spread since the country's lifted restrictions aimed at stomping out infections. Jordan Fabian reports on Bloomberg Markets.
Well, they have the highest percentage of people that have received the hokey pokey. And I think that, of course, I think that it's a great chance that a lot of these people are dealing with C-19, but it could be a lot of other things that these people are in the hospital for, that why the hospitals are overrun by these people. But which is irrelevant to some extent because period. We're finding that we know, like, there's certain things that we got to really pay attention to. What's the CRP? What's the CPR? No, what's the name of that test that they give? I know Doc knows.
CPR? What are you talking about?
No. The test that what's the name of the COVID test?
Yeah.
Whatever it's called, I forget what it is, but that's they're showing proof that it never could tell you, exactly if it was COVID or not, because there's I don't know, maybe it's been expanded. I don't know, but we got to really be so careful because a lot of this stuff is programming. it's still, we cannot like forget, from one subject to the next, that it's all meant to control our vision of what we see, what we believe.
PCR test.
PCR test, yes. I was so many different uh alphabet groups and tests and not, well, but yeah, um they they're not proven to be accurate one way or the other, whether you have it or you don't have it. It's just,
I had an article on
you
this and I can't find it.
you could take a test, you could take two or three of them all at one time. They all bound to have different answers.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, the tech, they're attacking them on the tech front, and they're trying to restrict them from coming over here, under fair, what seems like fair reasons. But I think it's more going on. So, but then I wonder though, because of the whole talking about China, and it's been more and more talking about China as the enemy, like some Cold War stuff. I wonder.
Man, bro, and go ahead.
And COVID exposed how we don't manufacture nothing. And so what? Are we gonna be all the stuff that we get from China? Are we gonna stop getting that stuff and manufacture it ourselves? Because that'd be the only way that we could really be like, screw China.
Oh my goodness.
So what? And if a war breaks out, then how screwed will we be on getting our stuff? Because if it's a war and China's on the other side, they're gonna be like, man, it's gonna be an embargo on all that kind of everything. There ain't gonna be nothing moving back and forth.
No shit. I mean, but whether people believe it or not, that's been the setup. That's been the plan. Like, there's no reason that the United States should be in debt to anybody, but we are. And who, majorly to who? So
China,
it's like,
China.
you know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's insane for me. I mean, I can't allow myself to forget that. Like, I know, like, we've been the top grossers, maybe not producers, but we, like, regardless of how it's been happening, that we've worked in conjunction with China.
I do have to point out, China is actually the number 2 owner of our debt.
Okay, who's number 1?
Japan.
Oh
wow.
Yeah, I thought you guys would like that one.
Yeah, just screw us sideways. But I mean,
like, yeah, you may have blasted our country, but guess what? We can blast your economy.
We can't, like, they already have. But like, see, the thing is, it's an inside job. There was no problems.
That's how Japan got all the car people over back in the day. Was said, hey, we'll leverage some of this debt, back off on some interest for a little if you let us open a couple plants over there.
And I ain't gonna lie, I love me a Toyota. But it would be really crazy for us as Americans to believe that they I mean, not that they couldn't do it on their own, but that they would do it on their own, because I mean, they're still very highly, because they're dependent on us. Like, I mean, there's no reason for them to make all of those products if they don't have us to buy it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
there's emerging markets, bro, in Africa, India.
I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, you know, a lot of that stuff was refocused because there is a high potential for growth in Africa. Yeah, they're spending more time and money and you know resource because I mean a lot of the resources are already there. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like totally stupid, but it would be for us to not be preparing for the very things that we're talking about. But you know,
Let me
Africa's got somewhat of a pushback because, especially with the U.S., but you know they've already been making deals in different parts of Asia or with different parts of Asia.
and that's what's happening. Let me play some of this. This is the shit I mentioned earlier that I
Bloomberg is now reporting that 50% of passengers on 2 flights landing in Milan from China today tested positive for COVID. 50% of those 2 flights. And this comes amid heightened concern over the growth in cases as Beijing unwinds its long-held zero COVID policy. A lot of nations now either implementing or considering implementing testing for inbound visitors from China. That's something we have been tracking.
so
Are they gonna beat them into a hotel and make them like? Because I mean, that's one of the things that China like when it's lockdown time. Shoot, they shit, and that's the main reason for them leaving China was because of all of the lockdowns. Because from what I understand, it's mostly billionaires and millionaires that's leaving, not the
well,
working class.
if you can afford to leave, that means you got some change. Let me play this.
Announcing overnight that it's dropping its quarantine requirements for international travelers. Our Seema Modi is taking a closer look at what that means for the travel sector. Hi, Seema.
Hey, Morgan. China will drop its quarantine requirement for passengers arriving from abroad starting January 8th. This is big news for the travel industry. Jake Fuller at BTIG writing it will be a big tailwind. Remember, there's been essentially no business or leisure travel to and from the country for 3 years. And on the last earnings call, Marriott CEO Tony Capuano said the market in China is most certainly where we're seeing the most challenges. Yet it remains the largest growth market for hotel operators like Marriott, which has averaged 40 hotel additions per year. These are franchise hotels operated by Chinese owners. Hilton and Hyatt also a significant presence there as well. Wall Street will want to see how fast the rebound in travel to and from China will be at a time when COVID cases continue to rise across the country. You do still need to present a negative COVID test to enter. China's Lunar New Year, that's what Wall Street is saying. That will be the big test for the travel industry. Historically, a popular time to travel. Will we see a similar rebound that we've seen in the past? And how quickly will the Chinese return to the United States? On average, spending 50% more than other international groups here in the U.S. In 2019, about 2.9 million traveled stateside. That was down from 3.7 million in 2017, guys.
Well, and if you think about it, I'm gonna tell you, like with some of the investments, because I mean, this is something that it really kind of blew my mind. But shit, like the AI bot that's trading for me is doing trades at like overnight for us. You know, like here, like it starts. I forget what time it was, like 1 or 2 o'clock. It's early in the morning, so a lot of the trade that's going on worldwide is, for the most part, or at least consistent trade, shall I say, is in China. And you know, go ahead.
And what I was gonna say about the all the videos and stuff that we've been getting out of China, you know, how much of that has been like exaggerated?
No, I'm sure that's the part that I'm talking about. Like it's control, it's mind control, and the hysteria, the fear, the scare, like when you know what I'm saying, all this stuff that they've made bills for you know all these Asians that's coming, and you know if you treat them differently now, you know that's like it's a setup, bro.
Let me read some comments. It says, unbelievable. Welcome to the world again, COVID. Another comment, it says, keep your people at home and not let them travel all over the world, I say. Another comment, it says, U.S. should restrict China temporarily, see what kind of results from other countries before making the decision to open. Another comment, it says, so right when they're having an outbreak of some sort, they just happen to encourage international travel. Can anyone say Chinese New Year deja vu?
Yeah. Well, Chinese New Year is not until March, April-ish.
Yeah, he was just trying to be clever.
No, I know. I know.
And not very successful at it, but
it's crazy. But I mean, you know, and that's I mean, but he has a point, like, or she has a point, because it's like, why, you know, why is that so? Why is it that, okay, we've heard like the biggest outbreak in all this time, and then all of a sudden you're allowing all of these people to spread around the world wherever
but you know
choose.
they were protesting too, though, so we got to think about that. So like China had to deal with the situation, you know, having those people locked down so much was really causing a lot of strife and turmoil and costing resources and stuff, and also hard on the economy. They have a capitalist system just like us, so they want their businesses to be open so that they can make money. Like, you get what I'm saying?
I hear what you're saying, but what sense does it? Because I mean, all right, they, you know, shit, we've had riots, we've had different things that we were upset about, and this, that, and the other. I mean, you know, and as much control as China has over its people, I mean, there was no way to make a resolve, you know, like giving some balance to the situation. So I mean, it's not like there was nothing else that they could do. And I'm looking at the fact that, okay, if 50% of these people are ill, and wherever they may be going, spreading around the world, from, you know, European countries over here into North America, South America, or wherever they choose, Canada, that's just, you know, a way to spread it around, or to make people feel like, now, okay, this thing, here's the excuse. Well, yeah, the people from China, blah blah blah. Okay, yeah, that's why you sick. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, to me, it just does not add up. It does not make sense, and it just seems like a ploy is brewing. What do you say, Doc? You still there, huh?
We was talking about all this racial stuff. Southwest.
Did you that bothered him, you think?
I don't know. I was just saying. Southwest Airlines. I want to get to briefly talk about New York too, with the blizzard, because a bunch of people died. But the airlines is what really caught the headlines.
They might try to give you a voucher, but say no to that because you.
Let me go back to this. Hold on.
Hey Southwest, it's Erica. I heard you've been canceling and delaying a lot of flights. So here's a video I made for your customers on how they can get compensated. Feel free to share it with them. Hey guys, I'm a lawyer and love helping you get the most out of your money. So here are 7 tips for you. 1, if Southwest cancels your flight for any reason and you choose not to get rebooked, you're entitled to a full refund, even for non-refundable tickets. They might try to give you a voucher, but say no to that because you're entitled to a full cash refund. 2, if your bag is delayed, damaged, damaged or lost, the Department of Transportation requires airlines to reimburse you for any reasonable and actual expenses up to $3,800. For example, if your bag is delayed and you need clothing, you can go out and buy a jacket, shoes, whatever you need. Then save your receipts and submit them for reimbursement. By the way, they aren't allowed to set an arbitrary daily limit. Like, they can't say we'll only reimburse you for $50 a day. 3, for any delays and cancellations not related to weather, Southwest will provide these 4 things for you. They'll rebook you at no additional cost. They'll provide a meal or voucher or cash if you're waiting for more than 3 hours. If you're waiting overnight, they'll provide a free hotel, and they'll provide transportation to and from the hotel. Just search Airline Customer Service Dashboard to find this on the DOT website. Here are a few other things you can do. Just screenshot or save this video. And when Southwest inevitably asks, who taught you this? Just say, Erica taught me. She's a lawyer and reads the fine print, so I don't have to. That's why I follow her.
So I saw a lot of clips of, you know, people really angry in the airports because all the flights were canceled. Like a lot of flights, like a whole bunch of flights were canceled. And not only that, the people's bags had separated by states. Their bag is in a whole nother freaking state and their flight is canceled. I saw pictures of so many bags, airports full of bags. So that's what she was talking about on this, and how they canceled the flights, you know, and people were stuck in the airports. Anyways, you got comments?
You know, yeah, I can always come up with some, you know, theories of certain things, but I mean, you know, my thing is, I mean, everything is due to weather. I mean, us in the South, we get used to a lot of the stuff, you know, hurricanes happen, flash flooding, or you know, all the different things that we deal with down south. And of course, this cold weather, I mean, it's scarier to me, you know, like that's something, you know, where I know a lot of people would be like, oh, hurricane, y'all, you did it. But either way, like, I think people just gotta just kind of deal with what it is. Yeah, it's gonna be frustrating, but you know, the planes got canceled for your safety. You know what I'm saying? Like, with all that shit that was dumping down, you do not want to be in the air. You need to be somewhere safe in the first place. So, you know, yeah, do what you got to do to get your business resolved, get your luggage, and hopefully you were in a safer place, because there's people who was in their homes that were that's still frozen in.
And a lot of people died. I saw some clips on my timeline of people who were stuck in their car.
And rest in peace to a bunch. I was actually watching a video of they were talking about this girl who was on the phone with some of her family, and
yeah, I saw that clip.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's sad, man. Like, but you know, when they did get to her, she was already dead, and you know, and I'm gonna tell you, like, that brings up another thing, because I mean, as far as the cold weather, how we gonna deal with these electric cars in, you know, situations, not even situations just like this, because the guy that was complaining about the cold weather, it was 30 degrees where he was. 30 degrees is barely past freezing. You know what I'm saying? There's many places I go where it's, you know, 20 degrees, 15 degrees. I hardly ever see the negative, but still, like, if those electric cars are inoperable at 30 degrees, what the hell?
Those cars have heating components on the outside of the cars, and like for the door handles and stuff. I think those cars will actually be safer in these environments.
I'm trying to tell you, bro. The dude, It was a Tesla, bro. That's the one that you talking about with the like. That's for cute, like just so that you feel nice and cozy when you pull up to your door. No, when it's freezing cold outside, that shit ain't coming on because your battery is dead. It's frozen. Your battery is frozen. Now what?
Well, let me play this right here. It says at least 7 people died in Buffalo, New York after severe winter storm. There's a trap motorists in their cars knocked out electricity.
As of yesterday, we had announced 3 total deaths. We can confirm 4 more deaths for a total of 7. 4 were confirmed during the overnight hours. I don't have the exact total of how they were found. I do know that some were found in cars and some were found actually on the street.
Are you in the closet? Or break that?
What do y'all think?
It's horrifying to think of, man. Like it's I ain't gonna lie. I mean, bro, that's one of the things I worry about. Shit for me or my family, like freezing to death. I mean, of course, like burning in the fire, that's got to be horrible. But the extreme, on any extreme is bad, bro. Like that. I mean, if you could see how some of these houses, like I don't think like some of these people could even open their house, and just think that if any of their electricity went out and they're frozen in, they can't get out and go to their car. They can't do really anything.
Can't get no heat on.
Yeah.
Let me read some comments. It says, "Our thoughts and prayers are with you all. Please stay safe from your cousins across the pond." Another comment, it says, "So sad to hear people have died in this terrible storm. Please stay in and stay safe." Another comment, "I feel for everyone, and I mean animals too." Another comment, "I've been to Buffalo, albeit in different conditions, but thinking of you all right now. We in UK don't understand how the weather can be. Best wishes to you all."
And look, I'm gonna tell you, bro. Me, I worked through the holidays and all that, and through the storm, and if somebody, and I'm gonna tell you the way I've been lately. Like if I was offered a load that was paying decent, I would have at least considered it, and maybe not, have expected it to turn out the way it did. And just think, man, if like the way it is, a truck driver. I wonder if they checked out all the truck drivers that's out there, because you can be full, but a full truck and not sitting there. You might have a couple days you can idle, but if it's super cold like that, and you can't even really like. That's one of the things, bro. I don't know.
Sad. Let me read some more. It says, "I feel bad for the homeless. I bet many of the deaths are from them." Let me read some more. It says, "Bless those who lost their lives." Another comment, "Do not give up. Residents of Siberia with you." Siberia. Another comment, it says, "Yeah, I'm just going to the shop for a 4-piner. Anyone want anything?" Said no one ever in that weather. Geez, that's horrific and tragic that people die. Because a lot of people were saying that in the comments, like even into that video that you were talking about, they were saying, why did they go somewhere and all of this? And it's like, people don't understand, the situations that be in people's lives. It's 9 out of 10 times for sure. These people weren't just going out, just to go try to do somewhere, go somewhere.
The girl that we were talking about, the video that we saw, she was on her way home from work.
Yeah.
So Like she wasn't out playing around. She went and her boss saying, "Hey, I need you," this, that, and that, because I think she might have tried to call in or something. They need you, and she went in, and thinking that she would be able to make it back home before the storm picks up or whatever, and she wasn't.
She didn't make it. She was only like 22 years old.
Yeah.
Super sad. Yeah, people need to be more sensitive as far as always trying to say that people are just stupid and that's why they died.
Man, some people do have the privilege to be able to be this ignorant.
Yeah, that's kind of messed up. I want to get to old girl, but let's see. Let's do this first. I want to get to the Brianna Joy Gray, but I got a couple of little ones I want to do before I get there. This one. I always wonder about this. You probably know a lot of this stuff right here, but like the meaning of the letters on the cartels. You know how like S-Class or like E300L. This kind of explains it. Let me play this.
Large sedan. S is a large sedan. SLK is a small sports car. CLS is a four-door sports car. SL is a high-end sports car. V is a multi-purpose van. AMG is a performance car. G is for buggy. GL is urban off-road. So here comes the problem. What kind of car is this? I is a compact car. Z is a mid-size sedan. E is medium and large sedan. S is a large sedan. SLK is a small sports car. CLS is a four-door sports car. SL is a high-end sports car. V is a multi-purpose van. AMG is a performance car. G is for buggy. GL is...
Anyways, just something I thought I'd share just because I didn't know a lot of that stuff. All right, know hardly any of that stuff.
Yeah, I don't know for sure because I mean some of that stuff is different for different makes and models, so I don't really know all of them what they all stand for. The C class, the E class, the this, that, and the third. I mean, a lot of times you can tell by the number on the rank of the car, but I guess the letter usually has something to do with the style, the type of car, but I don't know.
This clip right here, it said, people really romanticize moving to a new city with no money and figuring it out. So I thought this was an interesting comment. So
I did that.
The comments underneath some of them is this person says, "What's your beef with it?" Another one says, "Wouldn't say it's a beef, but it's just wouldn't tell anyone to go do it, especially if you aren't prepared to deal with everything that's going to come with it."
Yes.
It says, if you trust God, you know it's going to work out just fine. And then another guy says, God will not pay your bills.
Well, I mean, when you know who God is, and if you trust God, then that means you're going to put your faith into you. God is in you. So you trust yourself. Yeah. You get out there and you get it done. I mean,
this one, it says, sink or swim. For some folks, it's in your DNA to challenge yourself and take risks. Not knowing what's next and the risks that are involved make you feel alive. Another one, it says, I just know you live in a box, pessimistic, making people make me cringe. So these were the tweets underneath. It says, it's folks in their own city with no money and still trying to figure it out, LOL. Another one, it's kind of intriguing, honestly. Once you prove to yourself you can make it, that kind of change and survive, you feel empowered to do literally anything. Another one, it says, I did it a year ago. I'm not only still living, I'm straight. So, but I wanted to talk about this a bit because I really think that it's it's a kind of a crazy thought, because overall what he's saying is to have a plan, you know, not just leave yourself, but don't have a job lined up, you know, you're going to be homeless if you don't get something going real fast. So I mean, it's okay to think like that as far as, you know, a new beginning, but you should have a plan, right? You should have some money saved up. You know, you should have a job lined up. Hopefully, that would be the best optimum situation. But to just up and go, I think that's not wise. But most of the comments, most of the stuff that people were saying, and then the part about relying on God, and I get the way you were saying it, Pat, but that's not what most of these people meant when they were saying that.
Yeah, I know.
And let me read some comments. It says, what do y'all think about people who move out of town but don't have a lot of money? One of the comments, it says, you'll be all right or not. Another comment, it says, I've done it and it's not bad once you get your footing. Another comment, it says, I swear y'all be on here just the typing, no reading, just the typing. Hold on. Because there was something interesting. They changed the order of these comments. This one, it says, it's the God won't pay your bills for me. Psh, God make ways out of none. But of course, if you have no faith in God, it won't happen. See, this is how these people are thinking about this. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm just going to give it to God and I'm just going to move to another freaking wherever. This one, it says, me, I was people, dollar and a dream. Another comment, moved to LA with a car and 1K. My car note was 800, so technically I had 200. Pressure works different for different people. Go hard or go home. Another comment, it says, I look at it like if I'm going to be homeless, I'd rather be homeless in LA than St. Louis. And that's why they have such a huge homeless problem in California, because what people understand is like what they say, it never rains in Southern California or whatever. And it's like they have like constant 67 degrees or some shit, like year round. You know, you can live outside and, you know, we was talking about in Buffalo how, you know, a number of the deaths could have possibly been homeless people. You're in California, you don't have to worry about a blizzard. You know what I'm saying?
Well, excuse me. The last part, because I was thinking about something, because I'm kind of my mind is still kind of in that frozen parts of the country, but this is about, you said damn, what? Give me the subject matter, because I'm still here. I'm just like,
yeah. Well, let me read a couple more comments. It says, God will not pay your bills. He clearly don't know God. So that's like saying, you know, you're not religious. I mean, you don't believe in God. So then that's the reason why you
your
know,
bills don't get paid.
yeah, you're not willing to, you know, up and go to another state and worry about how the bill's gonna get paid. You just give it.
Well,
She's saying, just give it to God. It's gonna work out.
Yeah, I
If
mean,
you
and
believe.
that works better for women, that to just be able to just up and go, because somebody gonna let you stay there, let you, you know what I'm saying, survive some way or another. But I mean, I think that any adult, male or female, should have a plan. They should have some kind of provisions for themselves to, you know, be able to move somewhere. And of course, there's situations where people move and not necessarily, like I said, I've done it as far as you know, I didn't have all my ducks in a row, but I went somewhere with, you know, with one of my, you know, where one of my friends live. As a matter of fact, it was Atlanta, and you know, got there with a few dollars, but shortly thereafter, because I have faith in myself and I put, you know, put things into action and got, you know, got some things popping. But you know, believing in God means way more than just like, you know, just hoping and wishing. That's action, you know.
Let me read some more comments. It says, God will definitely pay them bills. Please, when you move in faith, God moves mountains. Another comment, it says, it's called stepping out on faith. There's no limitations when it comes to God. Another comment, it says, God will pay your bills. You just have to actually know him. Best decision I've made, my G. I chopped it up. She said, God will pay your bills. You just have to actually know him. Best decision I've made, my G.
Yeah, that's 100%.
I really think that a lot of these comments are really just toxic, man. Look, this person says the absolute worst plan ever. They want to follow these social media influencers if they want to. What they aren't telling you is they received help. Stay woke. That's a good comment right there, because people are all like, oh, moving out on faith and all this. You gonna be over there homeless and
But
freezing
why?
to death.
But why are? Because see, but you know, really, I think it's they're being honest because, I mean, moving out on faith, they felt comfortable with the move because they had somebody that they knew would help them, or you know, like when they left, like I knew my partner was there. He told me, "Oh, you coming? All right, cool." You know what I'm saying? I didn't have a lot of money, but you know what I'm saying, I did have a plan. You know what I'm saying? So, and over time, it was gonna help. It helped him out too. You know what I'm saying? Because shit, he was paying all this shit by himself beforehand. Now he got somebody that's that. Like it can be a prosperous thing for everybody, really, if you know you serious. You know, but and I think some of these people, yeah, they probably did have help. But you know, like you talking about going somewhere you don't know nobody and this, that, and the other. I mean, hey, that's a hell of a leap of faith. You know what I'm saying? That's shoot. They probably know God way better than the rest of us. If that's the case, you know, they doing something like that. But
I
you
want
know,
to play a couple of these shorts that you sent to me earlier in the week.
I would just say, Madam Speaker, if we really want to deal with the trafficking problem, the number one thing we could do, the number one thing we should do, the best thing we could do is actually secure the border. But this week, the Democrats are looking to do just the opposite. Make an already chaotic situation even more chaotic with the repeal of Title 42. So that's what we should be focusing on. If you really cared about this terrible human trafficking concern and problem, we would secure our southern border. But that is not, unfortunately, where this administration wants to go. This legislation is fine, but if we really wanted to address the overriding problem here, we'd be focused on the border. With that, Madam Speaker, I yield back.
and this, I really agree. I do agree with him. And you know, up to a certain extent, because even though like the border would address a lot of it, but it won't address all of it, because I mean, we got to really, I mean, one of the things that I know is that a lot of times it's not just happening in Texas. You know what I'm saying? It's happening in a lot of big cities around the country. and that, you know, even though that would be one way to really address it, because it's probably happening more so and easier to happen through the southern border, because I mean otherwise you're probably going to have to catch an airplane. It have to be a, you know, some real work on the inside for it to happen, you know, through airports and this and that and the third. So
Let me play this other short right here. Remember?
What?
President Trump was the first to arrive, walking slowly toward North Korea in the no man's land of the demilitarized zone, or DMZ. Then Kim Jong-un emerged, walking faster to catch up. The two leaders shook hands, Trump on South Korean soil, Kim Jong-un in the north.
Good to see you again. I've never expected to meet you at this place. You feel taking a step forward. You will be the first U.S. president to cross the border.
They were separated only by a narrow concrete strip, the demarcation line between the two Koreas. President Trump asked and was invited to cross, the first sitting American president to set foot on North Korean soil. Kim Jong-un then stepped over the line into South Korea.
Yeah,
people forget about that, man. Like
President Trump.
People forget how quick we forget, and you know all of the stuff, the negative stuff they say about Trump, and you know none of us are perfect, but I'm gonna just say, you know, this is somebody who gave effort to fixing problems than to escalating them. You know. I haven't seen much from that from our current or even our previous before Trump. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. Is that an innate issue with those parties, with that party? Something to think about.
Yeah, well, I think it has to do with the military-industrial complex, and it's about money. So yeah, they're looking out for their donors.
Well, I think the influence can be shifted depending on the leadership, because I mean, you think Trump is not invested in some of the military stuff, or not necessarily military, but like Lockheed Martin, or like the people that's making the war weapons. I'm sure he's invested in stuff like that, but I think that, I mean, at some point you got to realize that, you know, the people makes more it makes more sense to make certain decisions based on the people and not just on your pocketbook. And you know what I'm saying, the difference that it made for the relations between us and another country at that time, you know, especially during that time. I mean, I don't think that should be, you know, overlooked, you know, and maybe even something that could be practiced more. But
yeah,
to me it's very telling of the type of people that we're dealing with, because no matter how bad they talk about Trump, like when you really look at his actions, he was not like no big hater, or you know, just allowing certain things to you know, to motivate him to be a certain way with different countries, like some of the current things that we're looking at right now. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of different motivations that, you know, things that's motivating this administration to do what they're doing, and it doesn't really have much to do with the American people.
I don't disagree with you there. I'm on to wrap the show on Breonna Joy Gray talking about elites, identity politics, and attack on student debtors. Because we was kind of having the student debt argument last week, and I feel like she articulated this really well. I probably want to play it in clips. They don't have a caption.
Did she mention anything? Because I think I saw most of this. I don't know, if not all of it. But you think that it's just like that's part of what I've been saying for the long, as far as like certain things that they could have done, or should have done, but they they say it because they'll get people listening and interested and supporting them, and then they can blame it on somebody why this didn't get done.
I'm telling you, that's kind of what she was saying. And then like, I mean, she's on the Democrats' ass really on this, you know?
Everybody should be like, that's the thing to me. Like, and really, whoever's in office is whose ass we need to be on. Like, if things are not getting done, I mean, I'm an equal opportunity, put my foot in your ass person. You know what I'm saying? If the shit ain't going right, you can get it. And we got to be that way, period. It ain't like, oh, well, this is my favorite team, so no, I want the team to win. I want everybody to be able to win. So, like, we can't let up. We got to continue always
We have
trying
to
to.
the people as the team instead of the D or the R.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to. That's exactly what I'm saying. Because regardless of who's in office, guess what? Who was consistent? Us. And a lot of the things that's not changing for us, and the things that we should be working closer together, we're trying to change for us. But it's too many people who are just like too afraid, or oh, what that I can't do. Like, people don't see themselves as enough to make changes in the world. Like, that's our purpose. Each one of us come together and do our part.
Let me read some comments underneath the video before I get into it. The first comment, it says, Nancy said it when she said we need poor people to pick the fruit at the farms, and everybody was educated with middle-class jobs, then who would get to pick the rich people's fruit? Another comment, it says, I'm happy to hear her call Batya and Bill Maher out. The faux populism is absolutely nauseating and so disingenuous. Yeah. Another comment, it says, God, I love you, Bree. You've really influenced my thinking in ways that frankly shock me, and this issue is a prime example. Keep up the great work. Another comment, it says, I don't always agree with Bree, but she really hit the nail on the head with this piece. I hope it gets as many eyes as possible. So let's play this in clips.
About why a certain critique of Biden's student debt cancellation plan has been really bothering me. And I think I finally figured it out. It's because at the end of the day, it reminds me of the very problem that drove me to journalism and then to politics in the first place. Elites criticizing student loan cancellation on the basis that it's helping elites are not only lying to protect themselves, they're weaponizing working class identity to hurt the working class. They're doing weaponized identity politics.
Pause. So, using middle class identity to attack the middle class with policies, but at the same time, pretending to identify with the middle class, like, you know what I mean? Looking like, let me play it back. How did she say it?
They're weaponizing working class identity to hurt the working class.
Weaponizing working class identity to hurt the working class.
They're doing
what do you think?
weaponized identity politics.
Yeah,
that's wrong. Let me explain. I'm relatively new to Rising, and some of you might not know that my journalism career was actually launched by a critique of identity politics. It was back in 2017, and I was just an anonymous lawyer, but I was being driven crazy by how identity politics were being weaponized to help Democrats peddle some really disgusting ideas. I didn't have a problem with the notion that people who have been discriminated against on the basis of their identity would band together with other people of the same identity background and fight for the rights that they had been denied. That kind of traditional, basic coalition politics always made sense to me, like a legal class action. If a bunch of people are hurt by the same pharmaceutical product or the same fake system, obviously they should band together as a class and fight. But what was happening around 2017 felt different. Identity became more than just a loose proxy for some experience you might share with others. It became increasingly essentialized. Increasingly, people were asked not to consider candidates on an individual basis or to think for themselves. The identity of the candidate was supposed to be enough.
She said increasingly was like, they're not thinking for themselves. You don't have to think for yourselves. Don't worry about that. Just, identify with the identity of, your candidate, and that's how you make your decision.
Hillary was a woman and thus assumed to be the best candidate for women. And what's worse, the fact that she was a woman was held up as a justification for policy choices that actually disadvantaged women, like her selection of an anti-choice VP. Bernie supporters were characterized as Bernie bros for pointing this out. And feminist activist Gloria Steinem even said that female Bernie Sanders supporters were just doing it for the boys. The statement
Hold on.
For which she later apologized. It was almost worse with Kamala Harris. After she was elected to the Senate in 2017, she was immediately floated as the future of the Democratic Party. She was Black, she was Indian, she was female, she was a senator, she was attractive. What else did one need? But many progressives and criminal justice reform advocates across the aisle pushed back, pointing out that her record as a prosecutor in California was checkered at best.
So, example after example of them putting up an identity of, that is supposed to be in solidarity with, a certain community, and that same person, does things that go against that same community. Does that make sense? And so the people that vote for these people, they're attracted to that person because they feel like they're one of them and that they're going to look out for their best interests or whatever, their specific needs within the society because they identify with them as one of the same. So, but then that person then goes in and even before that was doing things that was going against that same community. What a mindfuck. And then the people not even aware. And they don't even care either because they're like, whatever, she's a Black woman. That's it. She checks all the boxes.
As I wrote in my 2017 article, while serving as Attorney General of California, Harris failed to prosecute Steve Foreclosure King Mnuchin after his One West Bank engaged in a notoriously aggressive pattern of home foreclosures. Harris's department found that One West had engaged in widespread misconduct in its treatment of borrowers. The investigators urged Harris to conduct a full investigation and provide a public accounting of what happened. Instead, Harris closed the case, not even pursuing a compromise measure of a civil penalty. Mnuchin later donated to her campaign. But people who raised this...
Yeah, so these dudes should have been investigated. She was like, nah, I'm going to close the case. I don't think it's sufficient evidence to continue this. And then later on, the guy gives her money. So then it's like, that's really blatant corruption right there, like evidence of it. but we don't see it that way because this is the way the system works. And it's like anybody can donate to anybody's campaign. So the donation didn't have nothing to do with the fact that she helped this corporation out in the past. No, it had nothing to do with that. They just wanted to support her, you know, her campaign because they agreed with her message, right?
Concern, along with her concerns about her punitive approach to truancy, were dismissed as racists and misogynists. As I wrote back in 2017, Neera Tanden, a close Clinton ally and frequent defender of the Democratic Party, said she found it odd that these folks have it in for Kamala Harris and Cory Booker in particular. She said, implying that criticisms of Harris and Booker were racially motivated. MSNBC host Joyanne Reid referred to Kamala critics as alt-left activists, and Brittany Cooper wrote that the left in general, but in particular the Sanders left, has a, quote, black woman problem.
So that's what they do every time. And it's so, oh, you don't like the black woman being a VP, then you're racist. And you don't like women, you know? You know? So that's what it is. It's just that they use that, they weaponize the identity, and then they call racism and they call misogynism when you're just calling them out on, you know, their policies, you know. And then it's kind of goes back to the Biden thing, talking about if you ain't black, if you ain't vote for me, then you ain't black. So then that's it right there, you know, them using this. That's crazy.
What a neat trick to use black people and a superficial advocacy for representational diversity to deflect from actual policies that hurt all the black people who were not named Kamala Harris. I find it difficult to imagine something more unsettling than weaponizing a person's identity in order to shield them from having to answer for how they've hurt the very group they claim to represent through their actions, through policy. So why am I bringing this up now? How does this relate to the topic du jour, student debt? Well, many critics of Biden's plan are doing something similar in my eyes, but this time the identity is working class status. Like Kamala defenders that claim to have the best interests of working people at heart, at the same time they push to suppress policies that would help working class people, policies they themselves have benefited from, policies like access to a college education. In her Radar on Monday, Rising co-host Batya Ungar-Sargon took a stand for the working class, apparently harmed by Biden's student debt plan, citing, quote, first-year corporate lawyers and accountants as the main beneficiaries of the policy. But as she knows, the income caps would foreclose any corporate lawyer from having their debt canceled. Starting salaries for corporate lawyers are well above the income cutoff, and only 0.3% of federal debt holders went to an Ivy League school at all. In fact, 90% of the debt relief will go to those making under $75,000 a year, a huge difference from Trump's tax cuts, 83% of which went to the top 1% of earners. And to get to the top 1% of earners, by the way, you have to earn nearly $600,000 a year. Batya acknowledged that some of the aid would go to the deserving, but, quote, more of it would go to elites. That's simply not true. And it's not clear why someone would try to demonize a policy that targets people too poor to pay for college without going into debt.
So the argument of the elites are the ones that benefit from the debt relief program for the college debt.
And even more troubling, why they would use working class people to do so. I want to be clear. If you don't support student debt cancellation because you're concerned that it's not the most targeted thing to address poverty, I get it. I agree. It's not at the top of my policy agenda, but it is the most targeted thing Biden can do without Congress. e.g., by executive order. That's why we're talking about this right now. Biden can't snap his fingers and make public colleges free, but he can do this. And if you're troubled that student debt cancellation doesn't get to the root of the crisis, I also agree. That's why I've always supported Bernie's plan, which was to use a small tax on Wall Street gambling to fund free public colleges and universities. But what bugs me are the people who are arguing that it's somehow elitist to give poor and working class students a chance at the same opportunities wealthy people can access, the same opportunities that Newsweek editors with graduate degrees can access. Comedian Bill Maher provided another example of elite faux populism recently. A few days ago, he complained about the student debt cancellation policy, but in doing so, unwittingly made a strong argument for college debt reform. Take a listen.
50 years ago, 70% of good jobs required a high school diploma. Now they say 70% require a college degree. So I know this is like supposed to address income inequality, but it kind of does the reverse because it's the people who have college degrees.
Yeah, but there are also parents of those kids who don't have college degrees who want their kids to be able to go to college so that they can have a better life than they did. And we have to address the cost of going to college. I mean, I'm an old man, but when I went to college, you know, at UCLA, it cost me $242 to go to school for a whole year. Now it's crazy how much you have to pay, and it's unfortunate, and it does target the kids that are most most in need.
So, am I losing y'all? The argument with the student loan debt forgiveness is what we're talking about. And she's talking about how they're using this class divide. They're using this like identity politics. And in this circumstance, the identity of the working class to bash the working class, basically. And because, that's what the guy, Bill Maher went to college, but at the same time, he's like saying college is a ripoff, so what is his angle?
50 years ago, 70% of jobs required just a high school diploma, and now 70% require higher education. Why would try to withhold aid from people who have responded to that reality by getting an education, and in doing so have fallen into this exploitative trap of the for-profit college industry? Even if you believe that other people deserve relief more, and I would love to pay off some people's trucks, few people argue that students who have had to pay many times more in college costs than generations before them don't also deserve help. A rich kid with rich parents who can pay out of pocket might pay $160,000 for a degree. A working class kid paying off that debt over 10 years at a moderate 4.5% interest rate could expect to pay nearly $40,000 more for the same education. And that's even assuming they could keep up with the $1,600 a month payments. So why, again, the urge to punish students rather than the educational institutions that screwed them? If you want to get at the root of the college cost crisis, by all means, push Biden to do so. Push your elected representatives to vote for legislations to do so. I do. I will. But why try to take away one of the few programs designed to benefit the people hurt by this elite gatekeeping? One of the few programs Biden has the power to enact without needing to get permission from a corrupt Congress. Zachary Carter tackled this question beautifully in a recent article. As he pointed out, this is a policy that targets middle and working class people. 40% of people who attend college are enrolled in a community college. People making more than $125,000 a year are excluded from the program, as is nearly all debt from law, medical, and business school. About half the total write-off will benefit people in the bottom half of the income spectrum, nearly all of it to those in the bottom 4 quintiles. And of course, the government subsidizes middle-class people all the time. It's the central promise of nearly every political campaign. So why all the vitriol over student debt? When we argue about student...
So every campaign, they're like, we're going to do stuff to benefit the middle class. We're going to make the middle class stronger. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But then they turn around and don't.
in debt, he says. We aren't really debating credit policy, inflation, growth, or the separation of powers under the U.S. Constitution. All of these avenues of discussion are actually elaborate detours around the central issue, the structure of the American social order. In other words, who gets to be on top? Rob Reiner really hit the nail on the head in the same Bill Maher segment.
Yes, college is unaffordable. It's about making college more unnecessary. It's a giant scam. It's a consumer product that they're selling you as a golden ticket to be in the upper middle class. But they're not really getting any education.
Did you go to college?
Of course.
Of course.
Because that's
and look
what,
at the job you have. You're a big-time guy and of your own show.
Exactly. Bill Maher went to college. He knows that college graduates on average earn more. But despite seeking out an education himself and embracing those advantages for himself, he seems to want a different set of opportunities for everyone else. Look, college didn't used to be a scam when Bill Maher went to school. In the 70s, you really could work a summer job and pay off a few hundred or a few $1,000s in tuition. But what summer job will pay you the $20,000 or $60,000 it takes to graduate from college today? Today, college is still a good deal for the rich, while it's a scam for poor and working class kids who, because of interest, pay more for the same credentials as their rich counterparts. That's driving an income gap wider and wider. And what do elitists like Bill Maher have to say about that? Tough luck, I guess. Elsewhere.
What do y'all think? Tough luck. Your family should have had money for the school. You should have picked a different degree. You should have got done with school faster. You know, you got to pay those loans. You took out those loans. Those are yours. You got to pay them. So, what do y'all think? I'm losing y'all. I'm tired as hell too. I ain't gonna lie. I'm struggling through this right now. I worked 3 doubles this week. And I lost my damn wallet on Christmas Eve. It had all my damn credit cards and IDs. It had Social Security cards. All kinds of stuff in there. And I don't have it. Now I'm going through the process of, you know, getting all that stuff back. That's where I'm at. That was, you know. Anyways, that was just to say that I'm kind of exhausted. I had a long weekend and I worked a lot this week already. Am I losing y'all? Let me play some more of this.
In the clip, Maher claims that the jobs he says he respects don't really require much in the way of training. Specifically, he points to nurses, saying his mother was a nurse and using her working class bona fides to argue that in actuality, nurses don't need to go to college. I mean, that's an odd sort of stolen valor. Maher's take strikes me as weirdly dismissive of the enormous skill required to be a nurse. Is it populism to diminish the skills working class people worked hard to acquire that enable them to do their jobs? And even if you think nurses shouldn't get training before they, measure out and inject drugs into your veins, it is in fact required right now today. The average nursing student graduates with between $40,000 and $55,000 of debt. Some nurses spend decades paying it off. Is it really elitism to want to help them? And when the overwhelming majority of debtors are people like Carolyn from Arkansas, who after 44 years of nursing is still paying off her Master's of Science in Nursing, is it ethical to pretend that the mere existence of Harvard lawyers who do not qualify for forgiveness justifies ripping away much needed aid from the first responders and from American laborers? Listen to how Ted Cruz describes the working class in this clip.
There is a real risk if you are that slacker barista who wasted 7 years in college studying completely useless things, now has loans and can't get a job. Joe Biden just gave you 20 grand. Like, holy cow, 20 grand. That, maybe you weren't going to vote in November and suddenly you just got 20 grand. And, if you can, get off the bong for a minute and head down to the voting station or just send in your mail-in ballot that the Democrats have helpfully sent you, it could drive up turnout, particularly among young people.
There's a lot going on there, including the implication that it's bad to be easier to vote and making up kind of characters on the internet to be mad at. But principally, a slacker barista, I'm sorry, is someone less worthy or less American or less hardworking or less working class if they work in the service industry versus another field? Someone should tell Ted Cruz that the world has changed a lot in the past few decades, in part due to a bipartisan cohort of elites shipping American manufacturing jobs overseas. The average working class voter today isn't a man in West Virginia with a hard hat and a mine. 17% of jobs are in the service industry. Education and health services jobs employ more people than any other sector. So why do people like Bill Maher and Ted Cruz, people whose jobs depend on appealing to a broad audience, feel so comfortable punching down at the people they purport to stand for? At the end of the day, the arguments these elite anti-elitists are making amount to an argument that poor and working class people shouldn't have the same chance to go to college that they did. I don't see any other way around it. Inevitably, everyone arguing against student debt cancellation has themselves gone to college, at least here in the context of this clip and in this show. They have or will send their kids to college. As unfair as it is, they know what social capital comes from going to college, and they're more than aware of the increased earning potential that comes along with a college degree. So why isn't what's good for the goose good for the gander? It's easy to get in front of the camera and call out elites. Some people have made a lot of money posing as populist heroes, but take a step back and really consider who is fighting for the working class to get access to the same things elites have in terms of education, workplace protections, healthcare, and housing security, and who is just shooting down populist policies. Why do people who claim to hate elites seem to have the very elite education they now want to make nearly impossible for lower income Americans to achieve? Why is it that they criticize elites but never seem to bring up taxes on the rich? Do they only put down policy proposals without proposing alternatives? I'll acknowledge the flaws in Biden's plan. It doesn't go far enough or get to the root of the problem. But the left has been consistently fighting for more. Can faux populist heroes bashing this plan, which again is one of the few things Biden can do with an executive order, say the same? Weaponizing identity politics is pernicious precisely because a marginal identity is being used to hurt the very communities it pretends to protect. You hate it when it's used to insulate Kamala Harris from criticism. Is it any better when elites do it to protect the status quo in which they thrive?
I mean, look, we discussed this a number of times. I'm on the botcher side of this, and I agree with Bill Maher. I don't think it's this hypocrisy to go to college and also many people who are against this forgiveness went to college, but maybe they made different choices to avoid in where they're going to go and how long they were there and what they majored in to avoid accruing debt or to accrue less debt. Maybe they didn't go to the fanciest, most expensive place. Maybe they tried to finish in 3 years rather than 4 or 5. And this is, look, if you could, it's not about just wanting to hurt people who are in debt, but people agreed to take on this debt. It wasn't forced on them. It was a voluntary interaction. I would like to borrow this money from the American taxpayer, and I will pay it back under these terms. I think this system is bad. We've talked about this at length. The system should be changed. The college costs need to be made affordable to the people, at least if we're talking about public institutions. That only makes sense to me.
What should Biden do to do that?
I don't necessarily agree that this is that he can. He's sort of declared or thinks that he can. We'll find out if the court agrees that this policy can be done without Congress. I'm not confident that it can.
He's been doing it for 2 years, and Donald Trump started it.
Well, just because Donald Trump did it doesn't mean it's constitutional.
Right, but it's something that's been ongoing for 2 years. So to overturn the precedent of being able to at very least suspend these payments, which is what cancellation ultimately can be, is an indefinite suspension of these payments, then you're going to have to do a lot of retrofitting to the last 2 years of public policy where these objections have not been raised.
Yeah, I don't.
So here's the question. Fine, if you've had these other alternative ways, and I'm sure everyone's thought very hard about how to help working people, what are they?
I've said we should change the whole.
How? And show me the record of having supported all of these policies for years that would get to the root of the issue. Because I can show you, going back years and years, that I have been fighting hard, going to protests, working for campaigns, advocating across this country for exactly those kinds of policies. What I'm noticing
I've been
is that
advocating
a lot of
abolishing the student loan program for 10 years.
I'm noticing a lot of the people who have a lot to say in this instance have done little to nothing from a policy perspective to try to promote some of the alternatives they are just now throwing out here, just in the one occasion where a couple of dollars are actually coming into the way of people who earn $125,000 a year. We live in a country where Joe
$300
Biden
billion out of that we lent. We lent that money.
It's a tax base that is being paid into by the exact same people who are benefiting from it. I don't own a house, Robbie, but you get to take a mortgage. Well, I don't know if you own a house or whatever, but people who do own homes get to take mortgage deductions up to $750,000 a year on their homes. Do you know what the maximum deduction of your taxes is for if you have student debt?
I don't.
It's only $2,000, and that's only if you make less than $60,000 a year. If you make over $60,000 a year, it's zero. So tell me why.
Probably the taxes are unfair.
Tell me why, Robbie, we live in a country where every Democrat and Republican vows to make life better for the middle class. We have tax break after tax break for the middle class. Joe Biden declares that he's not going to raise taxes, not just on the middle class, but anybody earning under $400,000 a year, an amount that is well over what many people would consider to be just middle class. And there's none of that vitriol and backlash against any of those policies. But the second there is a distribution that is going to be made to people whose parents were literally too poor for them to pay for their education, suddenly we have to say, oh, if you're a middle class person getting aid from the government, you're suddenly a deplorable who's not supposed to be benefiting in any way. And you have people talking about folks that used to be considered the bedrock of our labor class dismissed by Ted Cruz as though their lives don't matter, their labor doesn't matter, their work doesn't matter, like some work is better than other. I'm sorry, that is elitism. Giving people the same opportunity that Ted Cruz, who went to Harvard, has, to get the education that enabled to him to have the career that he has and be the millionaire that he is today, that is not elitism. Everyone shouldn't have to go to college.
I think it's elitist to slam working people, baristas. Yeah, Ted Cruz, fine, terrible, bad. But people who don't want to forgive the debt obligations that others willingly took on, that they don't want forgiven because they paid their own way and they took out loans and they made it work, those people are frustrated, and I understand their frustration.
Well, I'm one of those people. I've paid more to student debt than probably 99% of people in this country because I had a bigger student loan burden than 99% of the people in this country. And I would never begrudge anybody else the opportunity to get out from under their debt. It has been a real mitzvah for me to be able to be in the top percent of earners and to be able to keep up with my debt burden. But unfortunately, as I've witnessed with so many of the people in my life, one misstep, one ill parent, one disability for yourself, one firing because there's a recession and the job market crashes, and you are no longer able to keep up with those payments and they balloon. The people who are getting their debt canceled are people who have been paying.
It's a scam, like Mar said. Don't do it. Don't take them out. Right. Don't subscribe to it. Don't do it.
And my position is
not
this:
worth it.
if you don't have an alternative, if you've never talked about taxing the rich, if you've never talked about ways that you could equalize inequities that might happen on the fringes of this kind of policy by just taxing people who do have windfalls, then you are not a good faith actor. And what you're ostensibly doing, what you're literally doing, is spending all of your time and energy attacking the one policy that Joe Biden can do to actually help poor and working people at the same time that you cloak that objection in a faux elitism. And frankly, I think that's the worst kind of weaponized.
Well, I described a plan in my radar yesterday for what I would do differently. I think if the income-based repayment, I think, is a good plan, but should be done directly with some arrangement with the colleges rather than the government for that.
Proposing plans that are going to be backed by Congress is a bait and switch. Biden can do this.
There's a plan.
Are Republicans going to get on board? Are all the Republicans like Ted Cruz going to vote for legislation? They're not. And I think that Democrats should propose legislation. I said this in my radar last week, that you should bring up all of the plans that the left has already written that are sitting there ready to be signed and voted on, to actually fix the root of the problem. But the fact that they have never paid attention to those plans is proof positive that they don't actually care about working class people.
Well, we're talking about, I'm not defending Ted Cruz.
I welcome alternatives, but people who sit around with their graduate degrees and their elite jobs looking down their nose saying, oh, we should just have all of this sympathy for people who are toiling away and serving me my coffee. The idea that you would say something as elitist as that and pass it off as being a working class hero is one of the more craven, disgusting things that I personally have ever witnessed in the context of this conversation. And that's
she was hot. Freaking yeah, it's really irritating, the argument where it's like, just don't do it, just don't get the loans. Well, okay, yeah, you could say that, but you know, at the school that I go to, at the University of Houston, is it's a pretty diverse campus, but I would say it's majority like white and Asian. Okay. And in my classes, like almost all of the students in there are on financial aid and have loans. All of them. Like regardless of them being brown or not. So what I'm saying is when he says just don't do it, then that means not going to school at all is what it means. You know, not having an opportunity to, you know, become a professional in anything, because you have to have the academic, what's the word? Damn paperwork, you know, you have to have that to be able to get these jobs. And it's as simple as that. We talked about it on the other show. It's a lot of jobs that just won't even let you in without some kind of degree. So what he's saying when he says just don't do it because it's a bad decision, then that means, you know, that's your opportunities you don't have. Because you don't have that, you can't do it otherwise. You won't be able to. Be impossible. Outside of your realm of possibility. Anyways, I sympathize with her frustration a lot, and I really think that she articulated the argument very well. What I didn't like was steady going back to Biden, because basically, you know, because she's defending it related to that it's an executive order that he could do and it supersedes Congress, which is cool and all, but I guess that's, you know, the basis of her argument for this segment. So that's why she kept going back to it. But I don't really like that because like elections are coming in 2 years. It's executive orders, less than 2 years. Executive orders are only good during the time that the president is still president. Whoever comes in after that can just be like, you know, nah, man, get those up out of here. So then it could be a bait and switch either way, because they'd be like, oh yeah, you don't have to pay your student loans back no more. And then the new president comes in and they're like, oh yeah, you got to pay your student loans. And by the way, there's interest on, you know what, we're not going to charge you interest on that time, but wherever point you was at before they did the suspension, you're back there now. Anyways, let me read some comments. It says, a friend of mine is a high school teacher in construction technology and teaches in a low-income area. It's great to see the trades being added back into school as an alternative to going to college. You can live a good life working with your hands. I agree with that. You know, but the argument is for the ones who, you know, want to do something else. So you're saying that that's off the table? They have to choose to be. What if they're not good with their hands? Some people aren't. Let me read another comment. It says, Bobby's arrogance and elitism makes Bree's case every single time on the subject, LOL. Bree is so spot on with this issue. Another comment, Miss Gray, you are awesome. Thank you for your lucid, brilliant, well-argued, and most of all, humane commentary. Another comment, hey, Bree, Mayor didn't just go to college. He went to Cornell and Ivy, in fact. Many famous entertainers came from the Ivies. You literally can't get more elitist than that. They know absolutely nothing about those living outside their class boundaries. And, you know, it costs a lot to go to those schools, a whole lot. And for the average person, they can't even imagine going to those schools, even with the loans. Let me read some more. Love how entitled Robbie, who had his education paid by his parents, proves BJG's elitist hypocrisy. Yeah, because he's like, they shouldn't do it, don't do it. And, you know, like this guy, so I didn't have to get loans. Well, why didn't you have to get loans? You was just fresh out of high school and you had enough money to pay for college? Where'd you get that money from, buddy? Like, who graduates high school and has enough money saved up to go to college on their own? Like, no one. Let me read another comment. It says, there is no point in doing anything until we fix the cash cow drain that colleges and universities have become in the first place. Yeah, because the cost, I was watching some videos about that, and they were talking about the profits that the colleges make, and they were talking about taxes because they were saying that you could tax them a certain percentage and their profits, they'll still be making a whole bunch of profits. But you can make it to the point where if they're making money, you know, over a certain amount of money off of these tuitions, that they can get penalized for that. And it'll force them to put their prices down so that they won't get taxed. So, you know, there is things that they can do. I mean, like, but, you know, like I was saying all along, I mean, I'm sure there's a lobby for the universities, you know, that's going to make sure that no legislation comes through there that's going to affect their profits. They're corporations, you know, they're profit-driven corporations, you know, but I don't think that they should be, you know, that everything can't be controlled by the private sector, you know, and I think education is one, and that's what was the argument way back in the day for like the public schools. But everybody, because of the propaganda and everything, everyone is really moving away from it. And you know, it's all about taking money away from the public schools and allowing the market to handle teaching our kids, you know, all the way through school, even in elementary and so forth. And then now you have these religious schools that are pretty much taking over. And they're teaching the kids, but they're teaching them stuff like, you know, creationist theories, you know, some stuff that's totally like not science, some, you know, and they're missing them, they're losing a lot. And not only that, you got all of these families that can't afford to put their kids in these private schools for one reason or another. And then you're left with the poor kids still in the public school system that's getting drained of resources so that they can just say that they're failing. They're not working. So we're going to let the private sector handle it. They should be able to do a better job. And then you have the argument that people always making that, you know, government can't do anything right, you know, you have to let the private companies do it if you want it to be efficient. And I don't believe that's true, you know, and some things shouldn't be private, like I said, and school is one of them. That's what I think. Let me read some more comments. It says, thank you, Bree, for asking Robbie, as a representative of the libertarian ideology, what their actual solutions are specifically. Notice he dances around it, just like all the conservatives, neo-libertarians do. I especially take issue with his claim that they took on the student loan debt voluntarily. No, they took on the debt under duress, under coercion, with the threat of being poverty-stricken to the point of working 3 jobs just to be able to have shelter, food, and transportation. If they didn't sign on the dotted line, the circumstances were brought about by collusion and racketeering of institutions, the rich and powerful, and corporations to rob entire generations of their prosperity and solvency. Most people don't have any other avenue to college, and that was by design. Free and cheap college has been politically denied under the banner of libertarianism, while colleges have been made cost prohibitive to average Americans. Then they were given only one avenue for loans, which were designed to be predatory. Debtors' only option is to give up on prosperity, which means they no longer have any credit, which is the only method of upward mobility, thus excluding the average person from competing with the rich, the powerful, and corporations from owning or purchasing anything that the rich want. The rich can now buy all the property for pennies on the dollar in which the debtor class live, all the businesses in which all the debtors class work, all the infrastructure of the communities in which the debtor class live. Worse, the rich will buy all this with interest-free loans from institutions that the debtors class pay taxes to subsidize and bail out. Robbie knows all of this. Long-winded comment, but that was great. Let me read some more. It says, fix the college scam. That's all our problem. The whole rich versus poor thing is old and tired. We collectively have a problem that we collectively need to address. I agree with that, but there's a reason why the system works in the way it does. And one of the things that Bree said was about the wedge between the rich and the poor. The whole process with the loans and going to school and trying to have some upward mobility causes an even bigger wedge because of the huge amount of interest you're going to have to pay on the loans of the money that you needed to go to school in the first place. When the other person, his family paid for the school so outright, so they didn't pay this, huge amount more. So the poorer person, it costs more to be poor. Everything costs more when you're poor. Let me read another comment. It says, we just gave the military like $800 billion. We've given Ukraine around $100 billion. Canceling student debt will help so many struggling Americans, and I'm here for it. I come from a fairly poor upbringing and had to take out student loans to go to college. I paid it off around 8 years ago, and it was such a relief once it was gone. However, I will happily watch Biden or any POTUS sign an executive order killing student debt. I think the benefits for society would outweigh the cost of this policy. Nice comment. Another comment that says, college is the modern indentured servitude. Ooh. Another comment. Thank you for calling Bait out on her bad faith analysis. Love you, Bree. Another comment that says, my mom's a nurse and didn't go to college. You could get the required education through trade schools in the 80s. There are various non-college based continuing education options as well. The college requirement is credentialism. Arguably, though, bailing people out of a scam, the government is partially responsible for promoting Makes sense. Yeah, I'm tired.
Yeah, man. Me too.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna wrap it. My eyes are burning from the light.
Yeah, it's past my bedtime.
You know that they have the images of a brown baby. It's like absent, practically absent, when you go to the doctor's offices or in the medical books and so forth. You know what I'm talking about? Have you ever went to the doctor's office and found them? You know how they have those pictures of the baby in the womb?
Yeah.
And have you ever seen one that was a brown baby that
Not
you can
that I can
remember?
recall. No, not that I can recall. Uh-oh, it's a lawsuit.
Well, it's this guy who came up with the image that's being used more. It's pretty cool. This guy, Chidibre Ibe, a medical illustrator from Nigeria.
Okay.
It says, let me read this. It says, last month, an illustration of a pregnant black woman went viral on Twitter, and many users commented that they'd never seen an image like it. The image, created by future Nigerian medical student and illustrator Chidibre Ibe, has drawn attention to efforts by artists of color to bring more diversity to the drawings, which can impact patient care. Am I sharing this? Let me share this real quick so y'all can see what the hell I'm showing. The hell I'm looking at.
Is that supposed to change how they how we're treated once we get into?
That's what they're saying. They're saying that it has a psychological effect.
Okay.
Especially in the books, the illustration books, where they learn, where the medical students learn.
Yeah.
You know, because in the books, it's like all of them are there's no brown ones in there. And so while you're going through your medical school, you don't never see it. And they're saying that has a psychological effect on patient care. I mean, it has a psychological effect on the doctor, which causes them to, it affects their care of patients.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, it's that time for me, bro. It's probably past time for me.
All right, man. Peace and love. Thank y'all for joining. Thank y'all for listening. Oh, man. We'll be back tomorrow.
For sure.
Lord say the same. God say the same.
For real though. God
right.
willing.
All right, man. Peace and love, y'all. We'll be back.
All right, man.
All right.